You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I'm here with Britt. What's up, Britt?
Hello, hello.
And today we are discussing the SnyderVerse. In other words, we're going to talk about Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, ZSJL, and the two Wonder Woman movies. Now, Britt, before we get started, which was the worst of these movies? I think I know which one you're going to say.
Of course, it's 84. I mean,
Yep.
of course.
There you go.
Well, you know, if I didn't torture myself into the theatrical version of Justice League,
Nope.
I would say that those two are very much neck and neck. I would say 84 is a bit okay to. It's
easier to stomach than
Yes.
that version
Yes.
of Justice League.
But
By the way,
yeah,
so
that
this was my
terrible.
17th time watching ZSJL.
That should go in the Guinness Book of World Records.
My plan is before it gets restored to get to 20. That's easy. I can bang that out in a week.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So again, we're talking about how Zack Snyder portrayed Superman and Wonder Woman and really revolutionized them. So first, let's go to the DCEU plan. And the thing about the DCEU, this is an example of great ideas undermined by the studio, because 99% of the issues with this universe are because of WB. And wait, before we do this, there's one clip that I have to play because of the subject matter here.
Yeah, second Warner Brothers.
There. All right. So Britt, what do you think here?
Okay, so yeah, studio interference, just like with any other, editorial or anything like that, it all depends on how far a concept goes, how far, something goes that could be controversial, in a sense of bringing in a PR nightmare. The thing is, the way they've been able to reinvent Batman, over time, that is pretty much what Snyder was trying to succeed, with Superman, and the fact that it was produced by Nolan, so it's basically trying to put these heroes in a realistic world, and honestly.
And that was the plan, because originally it was just WB approached Nolan because of the Batman trilogy and said, "Can you do this for me?" He goes, "Yeah, I can help you out, but Zack will do for Superman what I did for Batman." His words.
Exactly. And for me, I would say that the whole universe was ahead of its time because, well, actually, no. It was ahead of its time, but
the whole movie's up to a certain point.
Because we honestly, I take that back. Because right now we probably need that, because it's showing the reality of the world, and you need that certain point of view of, how we discussed, last week, of Superman not needing to be spoon-fed, and that he does go through the struggles. And then we see him slowly but surely, becoming triumphant and becoming the supposed Superman that everyone is used to.
Yeah.
But having him all smiles and, sunshine and rainbows and all that kind of stuff at the very beginning, it feels like we are not truly investing in the character and growing with the character.
Yeah, it feels very like a superficial view of this character. And by the way, again, and Zach and Henry were very clear that in Man of Steel 2, that was going to be the more classic Superman. So when he falls to Darkseid, it's a little bit more of a precipitous fall. And it was Man of Steel 2 was going to be that classic Superman movie, and then you get the rest of the movies. But the thing about this is, I'm going to tell you this, and I'll say this at the end of the near the end of the episode, that this is the universe that led to literally all of this. The Comics League does not exist if this universe didn't happen. I'm just going to be very frank with you guys. Britt and I don't know each other if this movie universe, particularly ZSJL, doesn't exist.
That's true.
That's what I'm getting. So for all you people that don't like this movie but like my content, you can thank Zack Snyder for that. So there you go. So the roadmap. So you had Man of Steel. So it was Man of Steel. Everything up to Justice League is pretty much the same. Where it starts to diverge is there was supposed to be a Flash movie. Britt and I briefly talked about this when we talked about movies earlier, but it was going to be a more grounded. Flash is going to fight the Rogues. Then they'll tease like the Reverse Flash. Then you have the Aquaman movie, an Untitled DC. Then you have Shazam, Justice League Part 2, Cyborg. All of this, by the way, was revealed at a CW event for the Arrowverse, by the way.
Right. It was, I believe it was
Kevin Smith and Jeff Johns, I think.
Yeah, when is it CinemaCon or something like that?
I think it was actually an online thing for because I think it was for one of the crossovers. I think during one of the commercial breaks, they're like, "And here are the movies coming out."
That's right. I think that was actually shown on. You're right, on CW.
Mm-hmm.
And they showed the concept art and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they had everything planned out, even to the very end. This is a 5-movie. Well, the core of it was a 5-movie plan for the Justice League, and then you have the solo films. How it was all planned out, it obviously was planned out.
Mm-hmm.
The execution, of course, with everything, it varies. And it all boils down to the fact that the audience really, at that time, was so immersed in Marvel's formula and having the heroes a little bit more lighthearted. So when you think of Superman, and they pretty much bash you over the head with this concept is that Superman is supposed to have the red granny panties.
Well, and not only that, there are fans that wanted them to AI Reeves' face onto Cavill.
Yeah, they are so used to Reeve, and then you have the idea that Superman he's supposed to be like this goofball, that he's supposed to be
a big galoot.
Yeah. And I mean, now we see that with DCU with Corn Sweat of being like this exaggerated galoot, and then he is a little bit more of the Superman that we know, probably laid back or maybe, but it looks a little cheap, I would say.
Well, and not only that, so do you know the story about why they went to Batman versus Superman so early?
Because I thought that it was because they felt that Man of Steel underperformed a little bit.
Nope. What had happened was, okay, so Zack was brought on to do a trilogy of Superman movies. That was the plan.
Right, yeah.
Man of Steel performed very well. WB was looking at the Avengers, because Avengers had come out the year before Man of Steel, and they're like, wait, we have DC. We can do that too. Hey, Zack, can you get to the Justice League? Instead of doing Superman, can you build out a DC universe? And he's like, okay, cool. Can I have a couple of solo films? They go, no, you have to get to the Justice League now. That's why you get Batman versus Superman, where it's all of a sudden cramming in Wonder Woman, Aquaman, The Flash, and Cyborg, and then Justice League is so early. Literally, that was a studio mandate because Zack wanted to have solo films for, I think, at least Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and then maybe Aquaman or something like that, and then Justice League.
I did hear that. And
that's why
yeah.
I say 99% of people's issues with this universe is not Zack's fault at all.
Yeah, WB was very reactionary at that time, and they pretty much still are. I think that they've lowered their standards to the point of, I don't know how you can get any lower.
Well,
but
the funny part is that if they had stuck the course, we literally would have finished their universe in 2020. And then, organic, Gunn can move on, because that's why Zack was going to end his universe with Flashpoint. Because that way, hey, it reboots. The next guy comes in and does his stuff.
Right.
There you go. You're done.
Or even if they wanted to, they really wanted to do a crisis film at some point too. So I wouldn't be surprised if, even though Snyder would do Flashpoint, they would end up building towards Crisis.
Oh yeah,
and
for
then,
sure.
And then do the whole reboot thing with Gunn or whoever else that would have taken over.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where if I see all that stuff, and I'm like, oh man, that would have been dope. But particularly if you know, like, Snyder's like style, because a lot of these characters are styled after what Snyder wanted. But anyway, so then we get to a few of the movies that were announced. Okay, the original Ben Affleck Batman movie, by the way, has the endorsement of Marv Wolfman, the creator of Deathstroke. So, and Deathstroke's going to be the main villain. The idea was in ZSJL, Luthor tells Slade Batman's identity. So Slade goes to Gotham because apparently Batman did something like, maybe, I think it was Slade blames Batman for Slade's son's death. So Deathstroke shows up in Gotham and completely tears apart Batman's life. Catwoman would have shown up. I believe the story is Batman and Catwoman were married, but after Robin died, because that's what made Batman like brutal, and this is straight out of the comics because that's kind of what happened when Jason died. Batman got dark, and Selina just left because he was getting too dark, and maybe was like, I don't think they would have turned Batman into an abusive husband. I really don't think they would have, but it would have been like, she was like, I'm done with this. So yeah, Batman returning after Justice League, and he wants to like to make amends. Maybe tries to win back Selina. And then you have Batgirl was supposed to be in this movie, and there was gonna be Batman versus Deathstroke. And I'm like, yes. Then you have like all the weirdos on Twitter that are like, Deathstroke is not a Batman villain, and I'm like, so Deathstroke fights everyone in the comics. What are you talking about?
That's true. On the part of Batcat, that would have been honestly a very good love story. Especially, no, Bruce wasn't abusive.
No, he wasn't.
The thing is, and why it was so close to home for Affleck was because Bruce did turn to like being an alcoholic and depressed.
And that was intentional. But as you know, that Affleck, when he made Good Will Hunting, he took his paycheck from that movie and built an actual Batcave in his house.
Really?
The dude is a Batman fan.
Yeah. And he also, like I said, it was too close to home because he was also going through a divorce. So, you know, divorcing Selena, divorcing Jennifer Garner, it was way too close. That's pretty much why he dropped out of it. And
then it basically got turned into that Reeves movie, which Reeves movie's fine. I don't really. The problem with it is that it goes on for way too long, but it's one of those things where I'm like, and then we get Cyborg. Fun fact: if the Cyborg movie had come out, it would have come out before Black Panther.
Yeah.
Making DC the first major studio to release a in cinematic universe Black superhero movie. I say in cinematic universe because technically Black Panther isn't the first Black superhero movie because you have Blade
for Marvel, and then you have like the
Steel.
Yeah, and
Which,
it's
do you want to count that?
no, 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 not really. I'm just saying that
Mhm,
those, kind of wacky type older films.
mhm,
But for this Cyborg's main plot point to be about his mother,
mhm.
and and that really would hit home for to show this black son,
Mhm.
loving his mother.
Yeah,
That would have been something very inspiring. Yes, Black Panther had, Angela Bassett as the queen, as the, mother matriarch, but it was more so leaning towards, T'Challa and his father.
I
And
always thought that I recently rewatched Black Panther, and it kind of got me thinking that Angela Bassett could have made a good Storm.
oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I was watching it. I was like, you have the voice for Storm.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, that really, I mean, that was a missed opportunity. And even if you wanted to change it where I know that Cyborg is, New 52 oriented,
Hmm.
so it's him being with the League, but you could have dropped hints that, you know, Teen Titans exist in some type of way, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, because I mean, we already know Batgirl exists in this universe, so you know the younger heroes do exist. You can have Clark discover Connor. We know that Carr was going to be discovered in this, but so there's like a lot that they were doing here. Then you get Green Lantern Corps. This is the one where I'm like pissed off because this would have been an actual. By the way, the Green Lantern scene that's on the screen. Did you know that was shot in Zach's driveway?
Yes,
That
yes,
was
that was
that was that's the way Zach. That's how good that looks.
yeah, that was going viral, and it's very good. I mean, you really wouldn't think that that's just in someone's driveway.
Yeah, exactly. And he's just in a motion capture and all that. That was supposed to be the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, where Green Lantern shows up, but WB thought it would confuse people because they were doing a Green Lantern project that never came out. So he had to change it to Martian Manhunter. Again, see, the studio is constantly being a-holes. They were also upset because he used Darkseid in the Snyder cut, but they were going to use it for the New Gods movie that was going to be okay. This is how much of a bullet we dodged with the New Gods. So it was going to be directed by the same woman that did that was behind the Naomi series,
Hmm.
and then written by Tom King. We
Oh,
dodged
that's
quite the
right.
bullet with that one.
That's right.
Looking back in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, I'm cool with not getting a New Gods movie. It was because he got the job because of that Mr. Miracle book. But when you watch that Mr. Miracle book, I'm like, is that really the opinion of New Gods you want in a New Gods movie?
And the thing is, it just felt like when they were trying to, whether he wrote the script and they didn't like it or something, it felt like with it being in developmental hell, yeah, it wasn't good. So the only reason why he is helming the lanterns now for Gunn is only because he is friends with him, but it doesn't have to, but it's not so much as he's qualified to write the lanterns. And the thing is, and I've told you this multiple times, of how DCU is basically, regurgitated and, leftovers of the previous um, regime. So you have Hal Jordan and John Stewart being introduced, and I believe that they tried to get Tom Cruise to be Hal Jordan for this film. And John Stewart was going to be the rookie.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so they were going to already have um, Hal older, but I don't think he
Not
was going
as
to
old
be
as Kyle Chandler,
right, right. I don't think he was going to be, retirement age
almost
older.
60. Because
Yeah,
that's how old Kyle Chandler is. That's what people forget. And I'm like, 60-year-old Hal Jordan. Nice.
yeah. I believe he was going to be at this time of Tom Cruise's age, um, at least in mid 40s. early
I
40s.
could see Hal being that old.
Yeah.
But so then you get to the Flash. Now, okay, interesting thing. In Flashpoint, the actual Flashpoint movie they were going to do, they were going to establish that all these divergences with the canon from like the way you know these characters, that was going to be due to interference from the Reverse Flash just to screw with Barry. So in reality, the entire DCEU story is a Flash story.
Yeah, the whole thing pretty much was, I mean, it was centered around Flash. And the thing is, with having, directors going, it was a revolving door for directors. And then you had Morrison, I think, had input on the Flash script as well, multiple times, and Israel being more involved as well. Um, but the fact that the Flash film that we got, I mean, from what it was
Yeah.
supposed to be to the final product, I mean, that just really showed the disaster and, the disastrous state
You could
that
say
we needed in.
a crisis.
Oh my God.
You set me up so well for that, Britt.
I did. I did.
But you see, the potential was, by the way, the first Flash movie was going to be a Cyborg and Flash team up movie.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like Zack was going to do a lot more with like team up movies, which we hadn't really seen in comic books. Like, there was going to be a World's Finest movie at some point. And in this universe, there probably would have been a Superman and Wonder Woman movie.
Well, okay. So that is something that goes into later in the show.
Yeah, I'm sure. So then we get, again, so it's changes in studio interference. But here's the thing, Britt. Even though for the amount of studio interference, it actually turned out not that bad.
It didn't.
Once you got the Snyder cut in, because once you got the Snyder cut in for the movies that Zack directly had a hand in, it was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Now this is starting to get good. And then it's like, no. And that's the thing. I'm like, see, here's the thing. All right, so Justice League happens. And again, he had to leave because what happened to his daughter. And the stupid part, okay, so they bring in Whedon. We were all, I say we as in me, we're like, okay, he did Avengers, and he's just coming in to like, the way that it was represented to us is connective tissue, just to work on the edits and just get it across the finish line. Okay, that's fine. He has experience with that. And then WB was like, "Oh yeah, Snyder and Whedon are close friends. Snyder, in fact, handpicked Whedon." This is the lies that WB was feeding us, Britt. So we get to Justice League. I originally thought it was pretty good because, again, you as a fan, you're like, "Oh, it's the Justice League. This is awesome." Then Zack starts leaking on Vero. Oh, remember Darkseid? I'm like, Darkseid was supposed to be in this movie? Wait, that's supposed to be... That movie sucks! Once you see what was taken out, I'm like... And then what was put in. Because it's like... When Martha Kent tells Lois that Clark called her the thirstiest woman she ever did know. And I'm like, why? And then... To cap it all off, Britt, remember when Flash tripped and fell into Wonder Woman's boobs? I remember watching that, and I was like, why are you doing this?
Honestly, okay, so I read up on their cover-ups with Whedon, and yeah, he was supposed to come in just for touch-ups and, editing and all of that, and, just give it basically a final, polishing. And when you see how underdeveloped the movie is, it's kind of like, and how they rewrote some of the things, and the fact that Wonder Woman was basically a stand-in for a lot of the scenes, especially with Batman, because Whedon wanted to try to implement some type of tension and romance or whatever with Diana and Bruce. And it,
Did Steve Trevor tell you that? And I'm like, remember, this is after Whedon tried to force in a romance between Hulk and Black Widow in the MCU. And then when the next Avengers, literally the next Avengers movie, Britt, they reunite and they go, oh, hey, Bruce. Hey, Nat. Okay, we're going our separate ways. Okay. Like, literally, the Russo brothers were like, we're not doing that.
yeah, it was weird. It was definitely weird of how, trying to force so much in it. And it was, it's kind of like they really played off of wanting like the, JLU type fandom.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it did release on, the anniversary of JLU.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, yeah, you try to um cater to one fandom, but obviously that is not the I don't know if that's not the fandom or it was just kind of like it was very misguided
Mm-hmm.
with,
They
yes,
were
a
trying
lot
to
of
get the Marvel fans to come over.
and that too. And it's kind of like, no, that first of all, even with Marvel's like very kiddish type ways of of Cap, of of the Avengers, DC isn't like that. DC, you have to have a little bit more
Edge. DC is the darker
that
publisher.
and as far as visual, you know when you want Superman to basically have the granny panties, you have to make it a little bit more appealing, live action. It's not the 70s anymore. We are in at that time 2016, 2017, and now we're in 2025. And yeah, it looks very cheap, like I said earlier. So you have to make it visually appealing, to the audience and even to kids, or they will start calling Superman actually Captain Underpants or something like that, and
Which they
not
did.
in yeah, and not in a good way. And then the very cringe-worthy, unfunny jokes, and Wonder Woman being more of a sexy lampshade and objectified and stuff for
It
the
gets worse,
gods.
Britt. I don't know if you heard about this. So Whedon threatened Gal's career. There's a reason why when Flash falls into one woman's boobs, Gal Gadot's face is facing away from camera because that's not Gal, that's a body double.
Right.
And then
It,
wait, it gets way worse. So Gal wouldn't do it. Whedon threatened her career. When Gal exposed this, do you know how Whedon responded? I am gonna,
no,
in quotes, this is what the turd said. Oh, she must have misheard me. English is not her first language.
that is awful.
And I'm like,
Wow.
she speaks perfect English.
Wow. That is
Way to say racist. This is a racist, bro.
wow. And then the fact to know that she had the red scarf on because
Mm-hmm.
so they can like digitally alter the double's face. So
Mm-hmm.
she had to have like the red scarf for some reason. That was really when you know the behind the scenes of the theatrical cut.
That's why I can't watch the theatrical cut.
It's
I
awful.
only watched it for the April Fool's string. When this came out, when the Snyder cut came out, I uninstalled the theatrical cut from my computer and I've never watched it since. Because I'm like,
Yeah,
why would I? This is
it's
way better.
yeah, it's awful. And yeah, I never watched the theatrical cut, only clips. So I'm glad that I never did.
Ooh. You know what's kind of funny, Britt? So when it came out on DVD, I had it on digital on my computer and I was watching it. I see someone behind me and on my peripheral at school just watch a little bit of it with me and then just shake his head and walk away. And I'm like, it's not that bad of a movie. Then when I watch it later, I'm like, yeah, it is that bad.
Yeah,
So
it's awful.
So it starts off with Man of Steel. And again, this is the movie that convinced me that Superman is not a dweeb. Because again, the image problem that Superman has is that people see him as like this dude that never makes mistakes, that is the strongest superhero ever, and comic book fans want that to be that way. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. That's what it can be, but you need people to like get into the character, and they're not going to be willing to do that unless you actually like break it down. And that's what Zack said. What he does is he does deconstructive storytelling, but unlike, say, Tom King, when Zack deconstructs a character, he builds them back up. Because Zack's intention is, I'm going to break this character down to their core so you can see who this character actually is. Then I'm going to build them back up. Because now that they're back to be, now that later on the arc, that he's actually the character that you know him to be, now you have a bigger appreciation. And I can tell you, from personal experience, that worked.
And the thing is, with Superman, and that is the character all the time. Like I said, he cannot be spoon-fed. He has to go through struggles in order for us to invest in the character. And it's kind of like, why are we rooting for him? You know, so the initial idea of having him in a realistic world, a more grounded world, a world that is cynical, skeptical, and, you know, darker, edgier, it really reflected times of this alien, you know, coming to a world that is not his own, but his purpose is to inspire. And that mostly goes to the Moses allegory, not Space Jesus, you know, and we did go through a little bit of the Space Jesus part because, you know, it was like you said, the more serious tone, the every man type feel of Cavill's Superman was definitely New 52. Especially when especially when he worked at the bar, and you know, it really gave you that everyman, you know, type feel.
I love that scene where the drunk guy tries to push him.
Yes.
And so here's the funny part about that. That gets heat because Clark then destroys that dude's truck. And I'm like, okay, you're defending a sexual predator. Nice. But then I was recently rewatching Superman 2. That ending scene when Clark goes back to the bar with his powers and like basically beats up that guy that was abusive to him. And I'm like, oh, that's way worse because he went back.
Exactly. And not only that, but it showed that Clark, like, it's very problematic for Superman 2 because first of all, you give up your powers to, you know, to basically not be, you know, that. And as a very grown man, you know, and you really dismiss your priorities, your heritage, just for a woman who basically it's written that your romance or whatever you think it's supposed to be is doomed from the start because it just doesn't work because he has to take away something from himself in order to be with her. That pretty much showed that.
Yeah, he traded being Superman to being with Lois Lane. If that isn't a bigger downgrade, I don't know what is.
And he also it also showed that without the powers, Clark is basically he is the wimp. He is, you know, he very useless, and you know that is honestly an awful showing that he has to have powers in order to, you know, stand up for himself, stand up for the people that he loved, stand up for you know, for anything. And that is not Superman to me. Superman, it's a name, but Clark is supposed to be able to fight, defend himself, and everything on his own, powers or not. So
Yeah.
the message of Superman 2 is definitely not it.
Where with this, it's like, but it's like the dude was like manhandling a woman's ass. So first off, and then no, I just love the dude tries to shove Clark, and Clark just stands there, and he's like, if I were Clark, I would have got. Oh, or actually, no, even before that, the first time we see Clark, he's saving people with the oil rig. And I just love, he opens the door and his body's on fire, but obviously it's not doing anything. And then all the oil rig workers are like, what?
Right.
I just love it. And he's holding up the derrick. And then Henry Cavill's all jacked because he's Henry Cavill. But it's like, this is the funny part. Whenever people say we never see Superman save anyone, I'm like, where we first see Superman, he saves people.
Right. And he doesn't even have the suit.
No, he's not even Superman. And that's why I think it's part of the reason why this is called Man of Steel and not Superman, because he doesn't become they don't call him Superman until near the end of this movie. Did you notice that?
I didn't. Wow.
Because that's Zack saying this is the journey he has to go with. Yeah, he's not Superman. Not until he goes through this Joseph Campbell arc.
And also the thing is, I'm glad that it showed that he was, Superman before Lois. Like,
yeah.
He was
very
Superman
new 52.
Yeah, he was Superman during, Superboy in a sense, saving the bus, and
well, of
then,
course, we know he can't be Superman yet because according to Christ on Infinite Earths, he's not Superman until he marries Diana.
Funny, very funny. You had to put that in.
I had because that's what that looks like.
Yeah. And then it's like I said, it was a journey.
Yeah.
And it
now
really
did that journey go on for too long? Maybe we can have that debate, but it's like Zack had a beginning, middle, and an end. You could argue he reached that end with ZSJL, and we'll get to that point. But it's like that's what he went through, and that's the thing about it. Again, you see who this guy is because ultimately in BVS, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, but in BVS, my favorite scene in Batman versus Superman, Brit, is when he's saving people. Then all you hear is the news people talking about Superman. And then there's one guy that says, hey, what if this guy is just a nice guy trying to do the right thing? That's what this is. That's what he is. Because if you notice, that's why he always saves people when they're in need, even when maybe maybe it would out him as being a superhero. That's kind of the way this works. What do you think?
Right. Well, you can go ahead and start with go with BVS, but that movie, I would say that the journey of being the hero that people expect, that is an ongoing journey. It's never something that will completely end, at a certain point. Because as heroes, they are always supposed to stumble, completely fall even, and learn how to get back up.
Yeah.
And that is how they continue.
So you're telling me they will stumble, they will fall, but they will join you in the sun?
Yes, Jared, yes.
It's almost as like Zack actually was telling us this. But anyway, so again, we see Superman's journey. And again, I really like about this whole thing. It's like when we first see him as a kid, his X-ray vision is manifesting. And I like where he goes, the world's too big, Mom. And then Martha says, then just make it small. Focus on one thing. And then he focuses on its mom. And then the powers kind of start. And then you hear he hears people calling him a freak and stuff. So yeah, that's what this is. And what's actually really funny is that when Zack was on Rogan, he talked about how like Man of Steel is the movie that people come up to and say, hey, it really spoke to me because like I'm an immigrant. I know what it's like to not fit in. I know what it's like to not fit into places for various reasons. And that's what he kind of did with Superman. And that's the journey. Here's why Man of Steel is a great movie, even BVS, because one of the things that I hear people critique Superman for, or like creatives, and why he's really hard to write for, is they always say, well, it's hard to give him a challenge. Like a supervillain, he can't fight. And I'm like, he can't punch. And I'm like, yeah, he can't punch people calling him a freak.
Yeah, and that is what Superman is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, resonating, or even Clark Kent, basically all facets of the character. Superman, Clark Kent, Kal-El.
Mm-hmm.
He is supposed to, as one, resonate with different people on different levels. And it is all about, going against bullying, going against, that being judged as an immigrant, being judged just being different, period, you know. And how you are as a person, that you want to fight your bullies and physically fight them. And he literally cannot physically fight, his bullies, as he has superpowers that's manifesting, and they're just, regular mortals.
They even
But
show him when he's like a teenager, and like he's being bullied, and he's hanging on to that pipe. And then I love when he
yeah,
removes his hand, and the pipe is like crushed.
crushed, right. And that really shows, what kids deal with,
Mm-hmm.
or even adults, but how you have to hold in that anger, and you have to, find some other avenue to release it, in a sense.
Yeah,
Um,
and even Jonathan is like, "Listen, Clark. Yeah, when Clark goes, I wanted to punch him, and then John would go, yeah, and then what? Like that's not gonna solve your issues." And then he goes essentially like, "You're gonna have to decide what type of man you want to be."
yeah, and yeah, it is a lesson that you don't want your bullies to think they think that they got over on you or something like that. That
Yeah,
you are, some type of wuss if you take the high road.
yeah, you're not
No,
Steve
it's not
Trevor.
that. I can't with you. Um,
Or Lois Lane.
yeah, it's not that at all. It's just the fact that, it is basically the, with great power comes great responsibility type thing. And that is what this is,
Mhm.
that is a universal statement, basically. And Clark, he has to, that's an ever growing thing for him to continue to learn, um and uh convey, in his life, that, he can take over the world. He can make people worship him, love him, accept him, but he doesn't. He works for it. He
Mhm.
shows that he is worthy of the people's trust. No, we didn't get, we got a glimpse of the champion of the oppressed. I would say, well, we didn't. We got more of the man of the people,
Mhm.
than the oppressed. I think if we got a little bit of that part, then it would have really um, hit the mark,
Okay.
to really convey that this is a realistic world, and really show Clark and Cal as the alien, from another world, with truly connecting with, mortal immigrants, or, people who are less fortunate, you know, really showing that, and how he, talks to certain people, that really drive home, that sense of he is just this lonely guy, but at the same time he's trying to do good.
Speaking of alien influence, man, Britt, you're giving me such great transitions. So another critique of this movie, believe it or not, this is a critique, that this movie spends so much time on Krypton. And I'm like, you kind of have to for this movie, because it because the time on Krypton establishes who Zod is. You're establishing who your main antagonist is, and it kind of establishes like a lot of the context for the entire movie.
Right. And that really just shows how the audience, or, well, I wouldn't say
It's
the
a lot of
audience.
like John Byrne post-crisis fans. What does that tell you?
Yes. And it's very xenophobic and borderline racist and all of that. Because how is it that you're spending too much time on Krypton when that is Cal's home?
Mhm.
You know? And no, I was actually interested in, the whole political drama messiness, and of Krypton, because it shows a little bit more of why did an entire planet blow up.
Well, not only
Like,
that, so there's a couple of back things that they don't tell you in the movie, but Zach said that it's gonna blow your mind.
mhm,
So there's a shot where you see like the moon of Krypton and it's broken. You know why?
why?
For so long, Kryptonians were at war with Apocalypse. Steppenwolf invaded Krypton, and to fight him, the Kryptonians unleashed Doomsday.
Wow.
The
That
Doomsday that we
really,
saw in BVS is not that is not the actual Doomsday. That's why the moon is blown up.
that could have been an entire,
That could
like,
have been a movie
movie.
or a
Yes, a
comic.
movie
But
all on its own.
and fun fact, so Feora in this movie, do you know who was
Mhm.
offered that role?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. When I found that out, I was like, oh, wow. Well, you certainly upgraded because she's kind of like out in like one movie. But yeah, the thing I really like about this is because particularly when you get into the idea of the Genesis chamber, because what you find out through Jor-El later in the movie when he's talking to Cal is what Krypton's downfall was. It wasn't even necessarily the harvesting the planet's core, although that contributed. It was the idea that they lost like the element of choice, because the way it worked on Krypton is that you were genetically like programmed to fulfill a certain role, like a warrior or like a scientist. But Cal was the first natural birth in centuries on Krypton, and Jor-El says, "What if a child could aspire to be something more?" And I'm like, God damn it, that is so freaking good. And it also informs why Zod went so ape on Cal when at the end of the movie, because and Zod says it. He goes, I was born for one thing, and that's to protect Krypton. And you have taken that from me, so I'm gonna take everything from you.
And the thing is, that is why I love that Lara gets emphasis.
We'll get to there. That's the next slide. When I was rewatching Man of Steel this week, I was like, oh, Britt's gonna love this.
Yes, because the fact that, like I said, Krypton it should be I know it was a show, and that had a
It's
lot of,
actually a really good show.
I will have to watch that because Krypton has its own story, just like the mascara.
It
And
goes so deep into Krypton.
the thing is, that is
Originally
something,
supposed to be a prequel to this, by the way.
right? That is something that it needs to be explored, because you have to understand every aspect of Superman and what makes him Superman. You
Yeah.
know, it's not just Smallville, and I just don't like the fact that current writers, post-crisis writers, they emphasize and just make it that the only reason why Superman is good is because of Smallville. And
No,
it's like,
and
no,
it's legit just straight up not. And that's the problem with like the Byrne era of Superman, is that it makes it like it doesn't matter that he's Kryptonian. You might as well just have him be born literally just not even from Krypton at this point.
exactly. And then it's kind of like, okay, well, if he wears the S, then it's only going to be basically as, superficial as it seems of he wears the S because his name is Superman. And where did he get the powers from? I don't know, some magical cow milk or something, I guess.
Magical cow milk. Jesus, that's great. If I make a Superman parody, that's what I'm gonna use.
Because I mean, that's what they act like. Where did he get the powers from? You know, that's the only way, because they love Smallville so much. That's pretty much the only way he can get it. But yeah, I really like the emphasis on Krypton, and that is again a check mark on New 52 because
And by the way, a selling point for Rebel Moon that Zack had was it's basically a movie version of that.
of
Rebel Moon.
it's a movie
It's
of
basically imagine an entire movie that's at that like sci-fi level of the Krypton stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, as you were saying with New 52,
Even with that emphasis on Krypton and Lara and giving more of, character. Why do people love Gotham so much? Why do people know Gotham?
yeah,
As well as because they gave Gotham time to really be its own character outside of Batman. When you have the city, the setting have more character, and equal or so or more, you know, uh, in importance as the character, that really shows the value of the entire mythos of the character. And
yeah,
Wonder Woman with the mascara, we get
exactly.
the mascara, the Amazons, bits and pieces, some with, Nubia or um, Hestia, you know, things like that. We do get that. Even Perez really did an extensive, you know, um, detail of the Amazons and the origin and things like that. I am not counting DCEU yet, with Paradise Lost being a prequel, um, but to have that adapted. Then you have Historia. They
Yeah.
gave the origin of Hippolyta as well. That is something that really rounds out the character and just everything that is important to them. So that is the same thing that Krypton has to be as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you add on all the political stuff, and I always say because what Zod represents in this movie is that extreme like full Zod is the personification of the adherence to like the genetic like you're born for a purpose. And that's why what's kind of interesting is that when Zod is in that ship and Superman comes in and is about to heat vision it, and then Zod says, if you destroy this ship, you destroy Krypton. And then Superman says Krypton had its chance. He's like, yeah, this like we're born for this absence of choice. Yeah, that's done. I'm done. I'm out. I'm out of that. I'm choosing my own path.
Yeah. I mean, Krypton had his chance. That line was a little like, okay, he's choosing his own path, but at least be a little bit more of he's choosing his own path, but at the same time, he will honor the legacy of the good of Krypton.
Yeah, he
You
is.
know,
And remember, Jor-El had himself said in the movie that Krypton is lost. There's no saving this.
yeah,
So
and
that's what I like. Speaking of the L's, as soon as I rewatched this movie,
yes,
I'm
yes,
like, I know there's going to be another a slide just for Lara.
she deserved it
Yeah.
because with her scene of seeing her world, you know, exploding around her
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that again they put emphasis on her to be out of thousands of years that she gave birth to basically the savior of not just earth but to an infinite of worlds and dimensions, once you
Mm-hmm.
get into the whole DC, a multiverse and world. It's very significant, and a mother's point of view is always important. Is even more important as the father, really, because that mother, especially giving a natural birth, she is the one that's connecting with the child. you know yes, you can have Superman Cal connected with Jarrell, as that father-son thing, but a mother's connection really, like I said, it just gives the character a well-rounded point of view.
And in
And
that, even Jor-El distracts Zod, and she chooses to like send her son away.
yeah, and it just gave her more, you know, more character because we often see Lara as like just this mute, being on Jarrell's shoulder and
Well,
she
John Byrne
cries.
does.
Yeah. And then even back to Rebirth, when Jurgens felt like he's going to retcon everything, he made her, that's it, that she was just, um, mute and crying on Jarrell's shoulder. Um, Wade, he had her, she was carrying from his last Action Comics
Hmm.
story. She was just carrying baby Cal. She really didn't do much.
Hmm.
Um, and then of course Wade did that weird. She has a smile like Lois, which is
Yeah,
yeah,
that's someone has an Oedipus complex.
yeah.
But
That was weird.
the part that, when I was rewatching Man of Steel now, the part that got me teary eyed, and it always does. When I always get teary eyed at the shot of like Jor-El and Lara watching their son's rocket escape, but this one, it's like, to your point, she's standing in the window, and Kellex is like, "Shouldn't we go to shelter?" And then Lara goes, "Where are we gonna go? No one's safe anymore." And then she looks up and goes, "Make a better a world, Cal." And then she gets killed by the fire, and I'm like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah, it really makes you care for her character. And like New 52, with seeing her being a general, a scientist, and she's being the leader and everything like that. And that is pretty much how you compare of that fierceness of how she is like Diana in that fierce warrior type,
Hmm.
strong, independent type way. You know, that I think that is why I connect with New 52 and Man of Steel, Laura, because those iterations connect so well with Diana and the Amazons.
Yeah, exactly. And so then we get to the sequel to this, Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. Now, let me ask you this, Britt. What did you think of the fact that this begins from another perspective? It shows the Man of Steel Zod fight from the ground perspective, because that's something Zack does. He says the next movie starts during the end of the previous one, so that it gives the appearance that this is all one big story.
That was very nice. It was a very nice thing because, yes, we see from Man of Steel, we see the fight from Clark's or Cal's point of view, of course, because he's, you know, the main
Mhm.
character and the one within the fight. But to see more of the
So the human
civilians,
cost.
yeah, and the bystanders and all of that and the chaos that's going around. Yes, we see the chaos of the fight and buildings, being torn apart, but what is happening really, on the streets? How are people really reacting to seeing and running away from this big fight that they have no idea what's going on? And then to have Batman right in the middle of it, seeing his view to understand a little bit more of why he becomes even more cynical than he already is and paranoid. Um,
Because remember, this is a Bruce at this point has lost Robin and has descended into darkness.
yeah, so you see how he is kind of like just he this is his, um the straw that broke the camel's back, basically, for Bruce.
Yeah,
He,
exactly.
seeing all this destruction, and especially seeing the little girl, when she's alone
Hmm.
and crying, and it's kind of like Bruce always sees I remember when that came out and people were, of course, making memes about, oh, he found
Another
Stephanie,
Robin. I was about to
another,
say, oh, he's like, sweet, another Robin.
yeah, another Robin, Stephanie Brown or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And even though that was a meme, it's still it's still kind of true
Because that's what Bruce
because
does. He takes kids that go through the same situations so they don't end up like a criminal. He's like, I can, yes, I'm very unstable, but maybe I can help them choose a better path.
right, he's trying to help his inner child. So
Yeah, kind of.
with seeing a a child practically of that age of 7 to 9, he really takes that to heart. So with seeing that destruction and seeing the child, it kind of like I said, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And we do get more of what I liked about the Ultimate Edition was that we get more of Clark's perspective. The
Mm-hmm.
theatrical cut, it felt more like a Batman movie.
Well, not only
That was
that,
one of
they cut out the whole, oh, we didn't see the bomb in the wheelchair because it was lined with lead.
yeah, you that scene you really get more of the um the context that was
Mm-hmm.
needed. It's kind of like they took out some things that really needed a lot of context because if not for that, it doesn't make sense or it just seems kind of wonky. Um, Another thing is that it was kind of very comic booky in a way.
Mm-hmm.
In of the sort of introduction of the cameos with the Justice Leaguers,
Mm-hmm.
being on the email.
Yeah, which I get that people had some critiques for that, but I'm like, yeah, Zach didn't have much to work with because Don B was like, put them in now. I will say, okay, my issue with this movie is not with the movie itself, it's with the marketing. Because I think the whole, when she's walking off the plane and they go Miss Prince, that would have hit harder if we didn't know Wonder Woman was in this movie.
Yeah,
Because we would have gone, did they just say Prince?
yeah, I think that it really felt like because Gal said that, when reading her lines and how she was supposed to play kind of like the mystery
She thought she was
type,
playing Catwoman.
she thought she was playing a Catwoman. And it's kind of like, yeah, Diana and Selena aren't interchangeable, so I'm not sure like how she would. I get why she would think that because her character at first, she's she does give off this mysterious femme fatale type character. She does. And she does give that Selena, especially at the gala
Mm-hmm.
and yeah.
That's the
Also,
line, by the way, that sold me on her being Wonder Woman. When she turns to him and just smiles and goes, "I don't think you've ever known a woman like me."
yeah, Diana would say something like that, but also it does give a bit of Selena. So it was
Mm-hmm.
the fact that she was channeling a lot of Selena's character, and it's just like, no, don't do that.
But my point is, if we didn't know Wonder Woman was in this movie, and then all of a sudden she shows up, we'd have been like. I also love the part when they're at the event for the Friends of Metropolis Library, and Lex is talking about like Prometheus and stuff, and Diana kind of rolls her eyes like he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
That was funny.
I was
Yes,
like, oh god, that's so good. I love it.
yeah,
And yeah, I see what you're going with here, but it it was kind of like okay, yeah, that is a legitimate criticism. I think this also started the whole Wonder Woman is immortal thing, and I could see why you're like. Mm. By the way, they were the whole photo thing. They were filming Wonder Woman simultaneously. That's how they got the photo of like all the like soldiers and stuff. By the way, in the background is Zack Snyder. He
that's
plays a
right.
sol- he plays a soldier in Wonder Woman. But
Right.
yeah. So the thing about this is like what this shows, by the way. BVS is a Batman movie. It is 100% a Batman movie. But what it does is it shows Superman's effect on Batman because Batman goes from, if there's even a 1% chance this guy can be our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty. By the way, that's a legit like strategic doctrine. It's called the 1% doctrine. It's like if something's that legitimate threat, if there's a 1% chance that I could turn against you, you gotta take it seriously.
Right. And the thing is, it's fine with being a Batman movie. It's totally fine. However, it's still the fact that what we needed was to see Clark still a little bit more of his perspective. If you are going to have just the theatrical cut, it's kind of like they wanted to trim the fat, but they trimmed meat with it too. And it's kind of like, why would you do that? No, you don't do that. And that, like I said, with some things that needed context, they took that out, and that's what made it a little bit wonky. And then even with the Martha scene, you understand.
We'll get to that, honestly, but yeah.
What I'm saying is, using that as an example, is some scenes like that just you needed the context. And if you had the context within the theatrical cut, then no one, I think it would have criticism, but not as harshly as it did.
Yeah, but so for the Ultimate Edition, well, yeah, if they had released the Ultimate Edition, because they didn't release it because they wanted to be able to show it in more theaters. By the way, so fun fact, Zack told the story where they kept having trouble with the ratings board for this movie. You know what they kept saying? The ratings board kept sending back an R rating, and Zack's like, what do you need me to cut out to make this PG-13? They go, we just don't like the idea of Batman and Superman fighting. And then Zack goes, what do you mean? That's the point of the movie!
That really doesn't make sense. I mean, I would have cut out the tub scene because it was unnecessary.
Because it was Lois. Be honest.
That
be
too.
honest, Britt.
That too.
But yeah, but yeah, it's like that's what you got to do. But it's like yeah. With this in the Ultimate Edition, they show Clark investigating, being a reporter. So they show the equal part Clark and equal part Superman. But what I like about this is, if you notice, if you pay attention to dialogue, first off, I love Perry going, it's not 1938 anymore. I was like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing there. But I like how, like, no one cares about Clark Kent taking on the Batman, or that one criminal's wife that says he doesn't respond to words, just a fist. So they're setting up, you're going to have to punch the guy.
Yeah, it really, again, it gave a little bit more build up to, to the fight and everything like that. And also, it showed how they were very misguided and just a lot of, I wouldn't say miscommunication because they never really communicated as Batman and Superman first. With seeing each other as Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne, that I think if they had more scenes like that of, Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne interacting, that would have been a little bit more too.
I did love that one line was like, maybe it's just a Gotham City in me, but we have a bad history of freaks dressed like clowns. I'm like, I see what you're doing there. By the way, so now let me ask this. Do you understand Lex Luthor's plan?
Kinda.
So let me do this. Lex Luthor's plan in a nutshell is he wants to trick Superman to killing Batman to discredit him in front of all the people.
I mean, that's very much Lex Luthor because he feels like Superman is like taking a spotlight from him.
That too. And then he's like, in the movie, he goes, if God is all powerful, he cannot be all good. And he's like, because you get this sense that like this Lex Luthor was like from an abusive household. And he goes, no Superman was there to save me from my father's fists. Ironically, when Doomsday emerges and tries to punch Lex Luthor, Superman would save him.
Yeah, that was actually a good. I like when there are some things that are thrown in, at the beginning, and then it's come full circle.
That's what Zack does. That is the in my mind, genius of what Zack does, that he sets up stuff earlier and then pays it off in like the best way possible. I'll talk about that specifically when we get to ZSJL, but it's like that's Luthor's plan. He goes through everything he does in this movie, from sending Bruce those photos saying you let your family die. All of that is to push those two to fighting, because he knows Superman's gonna, if you push Superman enough to the point where he kidnaps Martha, he goes, "You're gonna, I know you're gonna kill your mother you're gonna kill Batman to save your mother." Then what I love, he goes to fight Batman, and he's still like going, "Hey Bruce, can you help me out?" He even goes, "If I wanted it, I could kill you easily." And he's like, "I don't want it." And then I just love, the Martha scene. We can debate about the utility of it. So Britt, when I did an edit explaining the SnyderVerse, I literally had Obi-Wan Kenobi from Star Wars going, "You have become the very thing you swore to destroy." Because that's what that is. What that's showing is, at that moment when he saw that, like, yes, it could have been executed a lot better. But what that scene basically is showing is that Bruce learns, hey, I became Joe Chill, essentially. I'm about, because we have this God. All he's thinking about is his mother.
Wow. That really gave another perspective, because
if you notice, he's not saying spare me. He's saying find him, save Martha. Do what you need to do to me. If you need to kill me, fine. You need to save my mother.
And the fact that you put that in a perspective that Bruce becoming Joe Chill is kind of like, wow, that.
And then if you notice, so here's the thing. Here's why they did the Martha scene. Because here's why they did Martha, and why it harkens back to the beginning of the movie where we re-see Batman's parents being killed. Because Batman has always blamed himself for his parents getting killed. I even ripped that scene from the Nolan. I literally had to handhold people to make sure that they understood this scene. And Bruce has always blamed himself, because if you notice, when Superman tells when Batman tells Superman, "Go stop Lex, I'll save your mother." First off, so during the fight, half of Batman's helmet is knocked off, and you see the human side. The human side is on the camera side, in other words. And then he goes, I'm gonna make you a promise. Martha's not dying tonight. He doesn't say his mother. He doesn't say your mother's not dying. He says Martha's not dying. And if you look in the eye, if you look in his eyes, the way I always interpret it is that this is Bruce saying, I can make up for letting my parents die.
So poetic. That
is see, that's what that scene means. It could have been executed more effectively. I understand that, but that's what that scene is doing.
Now that is wonderful. That gives a little bit more explanation to, what the movie was trying to convey. And as we said, it's always the execution of the movie that could have been a little bit better. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, explaining it, and again, the Ultimate Edition still gives you, a better view of it.
Exactly. Now let's talk about the flaws when it comes to Man of Steel. Excessive destruction. Yeah, but here's this is going to be kind of me defending against those criticisms. All right. This is realistically what gods would be like if they were fighting in the city. And hang on. I noticed this when I rewatched it. See, this is why I adore these movies. I've watched the Snyder Cut 17 times, and I'm still noticing stuff I didn't notice. There's so much packed in here. Superman, whenever he fights the Kryptonians, he keeps trying to take it away from the civilians in the city. And in the Smallville fight as well, he keeps trying, but Zod keeps punching him back down to earth.
That is true. The thing why I put that in is because, people like that was the main criticism.
True.
But yes, that is true.
It's not his fault. By the way, in the comics, there's like massive destruction. Also, in the World of Cardboard scene that everyone loves from the DCEU, AU, he punches Darkseid through like 5 buildings. That's okay because it's animated.
Exactly. And what I was going to say though, but the thing is with this, it also has to do with the consequences at the end. That, yeah, in comic books, in the cartoons, it's massive destruction there too.
Mhm.
So this is just showing a little bit more realism. Again, it's all about the realism in this world.
And Britt, they address that the excessive destruction is addressed in Batman versus Superman. It's not like it just happens and people forget it. By the way, real quick, here's a scene that I forgot to bring up about Man of Steel that I freaking love. It's when Superman saves that colonel that was even shooting at him and stuff. And then, yes, this is very much the Christian allegory of that soldier going, truly, he was the son of God. But it's like when he's in front of all those soldiers, and then the colonel says, "This man is not our enemy."
Yeah, it really shows how the judgmental part of it is kind of like you aren't, people are going to be prejudiced against someone or something that they don't understand.
That's what Martha says in Batman versus Superman.
Yeah. So it's like, well, honestly, that is the message that we are discussing now is basically what was trying to be conveyed within these movies. It's just again the execution, and I would say that when you just sit and watch these movies without like the criticism and all of that just fandom going back and forth, with the negativity, with the fighting and stuff. When you just sit and watch it, on your own. And yes, I did have your perspective in mind too. It really shows you a clear picture. Yes, it's very flawed, and some things needed to be better, but the story is there and it's very clear of, you know, the potential that this could have been. And like I said earlier, it was ahead of its time because at that time so many people were into Marvel formula.
And they thought that like the way Marvel does things the way it always has to be. It's like with the John Kent thing, because with the Jonathan Kent characterization, which you guys have to understand about that. By the way, BVS proves Jonathan Kent right. The world was not ready. But I know some people took the whole with the bus scene and Superman goes, what we're supposed to do, just let them die. And John says, maybe. People took that out of context because when you take the whole scene, because what happens with that is, first off, John says you have to keep this part of you a secret. He's not necessarily saying just don't do anything. He's like, maybe do it in a way where people don't see you. Or later on, because that's also the scene where they reveal the ship to Clark and say, this is who you are. And Jonathan Kent says, you're going to have to make a choice about whether to like stand before the world or not, and like stand proud in front of the human race or not. He's saying it's your choice. You're going to have to make this decision. It's a big choice, but I love how this is addressed. Speaking of going full circle, Britt, in Zack Snyder's Justice League, after he goes through this journey, you hear Jonathan Kent say, fly, son, it's time.
Right. And, the thing is, with Jonathan's character.
And by the way, voice is muffled again.
Oh my gosh. Technology.
Yeah. It's all good, ladies and gentlemen. We were having these issues earlier.
So with Jonathan in Pre-Crisis, he actually... By the way,
Golden Age was legit that.
He basically was kind of tearing down Clark, and wanted him to just be Clark instead of Superboy or, Cal. Mm-hmm. So then you evolve into a Jonathan Kent that's more supportive. So I think that was pretty much how DCEU Jonathan was conveyed here. Was he wasn't trying to make Clark just hide, all his life and just never help and be selfish. For me, it seemed like it was a father trying to protect his son and he wanted him to be cautious. And like I said, is like if you are going to use your powers, if you're going to help people, do it discreetly. Do it where no one can see you because of the judgments.
How are
And
people going to react? Perry says it in Man of Steel, he goes, "Do you have any idea how the world's going to react if they know this guy's here?"
right, they and I mean every question or everything that Jonathan said was questioned later on. Or it was answered later on.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you know,
By the way, you know what's kind of funny? Um, the other part that this movie got criticized for is Superman killing Zod, and everyone's like, he should have put his hand in front of Zod's eyes, and I'm like, this
what was
movie.
that really gonna do?
Hey, hang on, Britt. They did this earlier in the movie in the fight against Feora. Clark gets knocked down. Feora puts her hand on his eye like this. This is when the heat vision first becomes a beam, and it knocks her hand away. So I like to think that's Zack saying, before you say he could put his hands over Zod's eyes, that's not going to work.
I think every possibility, honestly, it was kind of like useless unless you kill them. Because if you say,
What's he
oh,
going to do? Even when Zod repeatedly said, either you die or I will, and I'm going to burn this planet down.
right, and he also, I mean, you're gonna punch him out of space. Okay, he can fly and he can breathe
And then
out of space.
I've heard people say they could put him in jail. What jail's going to be able to hold him? There's no kryptonite yet.
Exactly. So you're really you it's a lot of mental gymnastics and trying to, just the whole bending over backwards just to hate on that scene, but he had no other choice. Now, the I would say he was, distraught about it. He was,
He even
questioning,
screamed.
and that showed the emotional, damage basically
Because now he is truly alone. Because Zod was evil, but Zod was also the only other Kryptonian.
yeah, as of that time, he was the only Kryptonian that he knew.
Mhm.
So it was like that really hurt him. And for people to not understand that, it's kind of like, Superman is not, again, the whole, if you read comics,
He's not a monolith. It's like even with the lighthearted moments, particularly the post-crisis fans, because post-crisis Superman was kind of a dick.
I mean, he was very self-righteous, and even when he was trying to uphold, these high, holier than thou standards, you know, and the whole no kill rule, and being having this double standard against Diana. New Not anything to post crisis Superman, he was the one that would, turn evil if something happened to Lois, to the point where
Wasn't he
they
also the
had to.
one that assumed Diana slept with someone? I think we talked about that once.
In the 18th letter, yeah, it was, he was jealous because
Hmm.
he thought that Diana had slept with someone. And also we have where they shared a dream, and he basically wants her to be there when he wants her to, but editorial, driven, of course, he's still with Lois. Or the fact that he had to have therapy because he was conflicted about his feelings for her. So, yeah, this post crisis Superman was very flawed. More flawed, honestly, than even New 52. So, for the fans to act like this is like the perfect Superman, and it's the only reason why they accept post crisis is because of very superficial reasons that, again, is beaten over the head to be the end all be all.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so then we get to criticisms of Batman versus Superman. And theatrical cut, I understand. Because trust me, of the two, whenever I talk about, it's gotten to the point, Britt, where whenever I'm talking about Justice League or Batman versus Superman, I tell people just assume I'm talking about the extended cuts because those are the only ones that exist in my mind. Lex Luthor. See, what they were going for with Lex Luthor is, again, what like a modern billionaire would be like, and they were trying to make him like a tech guy, like a Mark Zuckerberg. So they were like, this is kind of what this type of hip guy would be like. But again, with this elaborate plan, that's pretty much what Lex Luthor did. And I just explained the Martha scene, which they even show it where when Batman is like over Superman, they hard cut to the gun going off that kills Martha.
Yeah, what's so funny that you call him Mark Zuckerberg is the fact that
he played Mark Zuckerberg. That was their excuse at the Full Circle event when they were talking about it. I was like, oh god. That, by the way, it was also at the Batman versus Superman Full Circle where Zack Snyder said, yeah, Wonder Bats doesn't work.
Yeah, you had to repeat that a couple of times because
Brit, I legit cut that out and made that a video. I put my intro, that clip, outro, done.
you
should have seen me. It wasn't like we weren't streaming, unfortunately, because then I could have recorded this. Taladia was there too. He can tell you this. So because we were watching Batman versus Superman while we're listening to the commentary. As soon as Zach says, yeah, I mean, it's fun to play with, but when you actually do the math on it, it's not going to work. I jumped out of my chair and I'm like, yes! Yet another reason why I love this man.
The thing is, I think that a lot of creators know that it's just Diana to be an accessory to Batman. And that was kind of no, they weren't going to have them as a couple, or what Zach was saying. It was something to just dabble with a little bit, and it mostly just was for the benefit of Bruce, because Bruce Wayne, how he said he was an alcoholic and flirting with women or sleeping with women, multiple women. So it was like, that is basically what he was trying to convey with him trying to get with a woman that he doesn't know, who she is and how she is. But that sort of thing, like I said, coupled with the fact that she was still characterized at first, if we didn't know who she was, as a femme fatale, and that, I will explain this more when we get to that Wonder Woman part, but it felt like that's kind of what they were still trying to push on her character. The concept that was pretty much scrapped. But again, Diana isn't the benevolent type goddess, that succubus femme fatale type character.
I know what you're referring to, but it's like Zach also gets heat for ideas that he rejected. These are ideas that didn't go forward.
Exactly.
It's like flow of consciousness. It's like if you and I come up with stuff for the ShelterVerse, and we're like, "What if we do this?" Yeah, but that's kind of that.
Exactly.
It contradicts the character.
Right. A lot of the criticism I noticed is from the scrapped ideas. It's like
there's a reason why they're scrapped.
Right. Yeah, he might want to still do them, but at the same time, they were scrapped, so they weren't actually official. And you can tell why they weren't official when he says it multiple times that, well, this is just a cool concept that I brought up. It's an Elseworlds, but it doesn't fit the character. Or
it's like with the Amazons being Kryptonian, with like the gods being Kryptonians. It's like, yeah, that was an idea we talked about that may or may not be that way, because people were asking, what's with the open stasis pod on the Kryptonian ship? Is that Kara? Is that whatever? And he goes, I don't know who that is. We talked about it being Zeus. And I'm like, yeah, they talked about it. Doesn't mean it's canon.
Right. That is something that a lot of these fans have to. The key words is kind of like, please take the word.
Well, again, Britt, these are the people that post panels out of context and get called out all the time for not reading the books. Can you? This is why, Britt. when I really got into like YouTubing stuff with this, I noticed 99% of the people that critique the Snyderverse movies have never watched them or haven't watched them in a while. This is why I tell people the biggest cure for understanding these movies is to watch them.
Same thing with reading the source
Comics.
material of the comics.
Yeah, it's like, look, it's a magical concept. Hold the comic book. Open it.
Open.
Turn the page. Enjoy it, because comics are awesome. Close the comic book. Put it away. And then actually try and have a civil conversations. But no, you can't. But it's like, even with the Batman brutality, that's, first off, Zack is clearly inspired by Dark Knight Returns. That's kind of what that Batman is. And then even Batman, when he lost Robin, if you read Death in the Family, Nightwing, the reason why Tim Drake showed up, and this is Tim Drake's first appearance, Britt, is like he goes, okay, Batman needs a Robin because he's going kind of crazy because the Joker killed Robin. Batman needs a Robin to like bring him down, to like center him. And I'm like, yeah, this is a thing. Zack gets more stuff right to the comics than he gets credit for. And it's like, people are like, he doesn't read comics. And I'm like, well, see, here's the thing. I would believe that if like a lot of the stuff wasn't as comic accurate as it is. Too much is happening for this to be all by accident.
Even with Batman and Lois, I mean, that was in pre-crisis.
That was in the DCEU.
That too.
That people like. So I'm like, this is the other thing. This royally pisses me off, Britt. When people critique Zack Snyder for stuff that other creatives have done verbatim that they love. It's like Batman Kills. So has literally every movie Batman.
Yeah, but it's the double standards.
It is the double standard. By WB remember at the end when Batman has the brand at Lex Luthor? WB wanted Zack to have Batman brand Lex. And then Zack's like, that undermines the character arc.
Really? That is,
yeah.
In there was also in BVS where Superman, when he goes to save Lois in Africa.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that scene where he basically jokes about, like, I don't know if this was WB or it was Goyer, but it was basically like he jokes and says basically he doesn't care about anyone else but Lois, so he'll do it again and they will joke about it. And it's like, yeah, you are really going down the line of injustice, Superman. You know, that basically he would take a life, or he will.
And there's no evidence he killed that guy. So, by the way, so it's kind of funny. That's the other thing that BVS gets critiqued for, when they just shoot Jimmy Olsen. But then that CIA guy says we used her press credentials. So as far as we know, that's just a CIA asset using Jimmy Olsen's name. That's not necessarily Jimmy Olsen.
Context matters.
Again, you actually have to watch these movies to understand them. So it's kind of funny how that works. So then we get to Wonder Woman. Now, let me say this. Wonder Woman, the movie, Batman vs. Superman was the first time I actually got into the character. Wonder Woman was the first one. Got to be clear on this. The first one. Because the other one is like, bleh. But right. The first one I ever really fell in love with the character. Because, it has its issues, and we'll get into that. But overall, this is a close adaptation of the Perez Wonder Woman.
You get a very curious Diana. You get her being, her mission is first. Mm-hmm. And the thing that hurts her character, obviously, as it says, mm-hmm. Steve. And the thing is, they wanted to make her a romantic character, and what Patty was influenced by was the first Superman movie.
Well, you definitely
And
see that in the second movie.
right. And you know, that's the thing is that Diana and Clark, two sides of the same coin, but at the same time they are different characters. So you can't emphasize romance like you want to do with Superman. You not with Diana. She can have a romance, but it's just something that isn't a priority for her character. And I think that well, I know that was her downfall in the DCEU because it was emphasized on as her main motivation. And only
Except in the
in
Snyder cut. Isn't that funny?
I was just about to say that in the Snyder Cut, when we see her in mourning and why she wore black all the time, it was because of her sisters and caring for them, wanting to go back home. And then we get that
And briefly,
um
Steve, because she does say, I once knew a man who would love to fly this, but that's it.
yeah,
Or when she recruits Cyborg and goes, I lost someone I loved once. And I'm like, okay, fine. In the Whedon cut, they hammer in that Steve Trevor thing way too hard.
right. And then we get 84, which really just goes off the rails of her the fact that your wish is of a man instead of going home.
Yeah, I was about to say she could wish to go home or like where's that mascara. Yeah, but anyway, Wonder Woman 1. See, the thing that I really think this movie does well cuz Captain Marvel came out around this time. And the problem with that movie, Britt, is that that's one of those movies that treats the male characters like idiots to prop up the female character. Wonder Woman doesn't do that, even though it would have been so easy to do so. But it's like, and the other thing that I really dug about this about the first movie is first off they played off 100% the fish out of water movie, and then again it's like the scene where she gets out and she like charges those machine guns. Yeah, that is what Diana would do. It's like if like someone's in danger, even Steve says this is not what we came here to do. Wonder Woman's like, yeah, but it's what I'm gonna do, and she just goes out there without even like consulting anyone else. She's like, nope, I'm gonna go save those people, and then she does, and then I'm like, yep, this character is freaking dope.
Right. We get a Diana that's very independent still, regardless of Steve. The romance part, I would say that it's better.
It's not as heavily pushed as it is in
Right,
1984. That's why I don't mind it in the first movie.
right. But you get a Diana that's still sure of herself and her focus is still on her mission.
Mm-hmm.
And she is very much this inspiration that she's supposed to be. So that was the first movie. The second movie, not so much. We get the lonely, oh, she just needs this dude that she only knew for a week, if that.
Yeah, she loved him, but then she was moping about him, and then it gets really weird. But even under this real quick, some people also critiqued in BVS. They said 100 years I walked away from humanity. The way to interpret that is it's not. She didn't literally walk away from humanity. Obviously, what she probably meant was I was more from the shadows. Because if you notice, that was the other thing that like a retroactive critique, because we know that the general from Man of Steel is Martian Manhunter, and people are like, why didn't he help with the Zod fight? And I'm like, the thing you have to understand about is like, why didn't Wonder Woman help? Because until Superman was open and said, here's who I'm a superhero, I'm here to help you deal with it, all the other metahumans were probably on the whole John Kent thing where they're like, the world's not ready or they will persecute us. And when you think about it, that's very much in keeping with the DC, with the way the comics are, because all the other superheroes take their cues from Clark.
Diana even says that in Kingdom Come.
And even to a degree in Action Comics 1000, when she goes, yeah, if it weren't for you, a lot of us wouldn't even be here.
Right. So, yeah, for this movie, I would say that I would have had this movie after Justice League, Zack Snyder's, because the reason why is The connection that Clark and Diana should have, I feel like it was more, or even in the BVS scene of Clark Kent interviewing Diana Prince,
Mm-hmm.
and even
Oh, what you could do. Here's what you can do. Have it, because you remember in Man of Steel, Clark lost his father to a tornado, and Wonder Woman brings up that she lost someone she loved once, and then Clark goes, "Yeah, me too," and he kind of is there for her to like comfort her through this, and that's when she starts to open up.
yeah, and the fact that she's telling her story, like
Mhm.
in the setup of the first movie is that Bruce sends her Steve's watch, and she types away her like full on memoir, basically.
And the photo of like of that essentially there
Yeah.
from Batman vs Superman.
However, it's kind of like, okay, what is Bruce Wayne gonna do with that? Like, you were sending him a whole memoir about your life story. What is that? And then the initial setup of the movie in the script before they changed it, they were actually supposed to meet at a cafe.
Mm-hmm.
And it really called back to Spirit of Truth,
Yep.
which that wasn't Bruce Wayne, that was Clark Kent.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Diana says, "You are my oldest friend, and you're the only one that I trust." So, why wouldn't it be that Clark Kent, if she were to have gone to the cafe, it would be Clark Kent that she told her story to,
Exactly.
and not only open herself up to um him, but to the world. And now that Wonder Woman, or this mysterious strong woman that maybe has been whispers, around the centuries, that now she's open to tell her story. And she's telling it exclusively to this reporter. That makes way more sense than to her sending this long, drawn out email to Bruce. Like that is something that could have been changed. And that's my one critique.
Okay. But you know what's kind of funny? Here's the silver lining of Diana being immortal. You ready?
Yeah.
It kind of makes it so James Gunn is again ripping off the DCEU because his whole thing is, oh, superheroes have always existed. And I'm
I
like,
don't
hey.
I don't think that Diana's gonna be old as dirt immortal.
No, but that's my point. That's the silver lining of in the DCEU. They do this because then it's like you're just ripping it off from there.
True.
You're not
True.
unique. Anyway, so speaking of ripping off, this movie, Wonder Woman 1984, is a ripoff for a lot of different reasons. First off, I got super hyped when I saw Maxwell Lord was going to be the villain. Because here's the thing, in the marketing, they show her in the golden armor, which she only breaks out if it's like a world-ending threat. And Max Lord is that world-ending threat. Comics Max Lord.
Well,
Then I see this. Here's what they really did. They wanted to have a movie where Wonder Woman fights Donald Trump.
this is why Tom King references this movie.
All of a sudden, it's a lot more obvious why the Wonder Woman run is an insult to the character, because this movie's an insult to the character. I
Yes.
swear, if Steve returns in someone else's body and Wonder Woman has sex with them, I'm gonna be really pissed.
That is something,
And watch,
honestly,
all the Tom King fans would talk about it's so deep.
King would do something like that. Like, it's not even a
I
joke.
wouldn't be surprised if King goes, "Hey, Millar had that idea for the violation of Wonder Woman."
Oh my God.
He
He
can't say
definitely would.
no. He so would.
He would. Honestly, it's not even a doubt. He would do something as
But anyway, with
foolish.
this, it's like, see, here's the thing about this. This is why when people say SuperWonder is against the character, I'm like, okay, so let's examine this. In SuperWonder, Clark and Diana have this understanding that like the world comes first. In this movie, when Diana learns that the Steve being there is coming at the cost of her power, she's like, no, I'm not gonna let you go. And I'm like, world comes first, lady.
Right. And even with the wish, you know, we see in Crisis, Diana's wish, once she, sacrificed herself, was to become mortal and be with her mother on Themyscira. That's the one thing, her biggest wish that she, missed so much as being an immortal and watching everyone die around her. She referenced everyone, but at the same time, her wish was to be with her mother.
Yeah. And I also, with this movie, took offense when Patty is like, yeah, I took away the sword and the shield because I didn't want the warrior type. And I'm like, but you gave her a threat that warrants the sword and the shield. That's the thing. And it's like, then you get to the Max Lord. So there's so much about this movie that is a waste. Like that golden armor, or like Cheetah, or like this whole movie's a waste. But it's like, here's the fatal flaw of this and why this shouldn't have been in the 80s. You know why, Britt? Why does no one in Batman versus Superman or Man of Steel reference when like all these nukes went off and people were dying and like all these wishes were coming true?
That is true.
Because I'm like, wait a minute here. Why does no one reference that?
That is basically why he should be old as dirt. Because you can't tell a Wonder Woman story or any, unless they are about
no, you can, just don't have the consequences be affecting the entire world.
Well, no, because that goes into her supporting cast as well.
Yeah.
Like she should be a modern hero. So no, that her whole thing, she should not be old as dirt. Like, period.
Yeah.
If you want her to be immortal, it should be she's born present day, but it goes outward.
Or how about this? Here's how I would do it. Not even address it. You can make the assumption that she's immortal, or you could not. It doesn't matter. It's just, I would leave it ambiguous. But it's like with this, even if it takes place in the 80s, someone should reference the fact that there was nukes in the air. What?
No, none of that.
How about DC was a little war zone?
No, no one knows how to fill in the blanks.
I'm like, Patty, it's like, that's why Wonder Woman 2 should have been in the modern day, because then you can do that and have it be in the modern day. But it's like, no, she wanted it to, because here's the thing. The only reason why it's called Wonder Woman 1984 is just so it can take place in the 80s, because the stupid part is that the marketing made this out like this is going to be about like government surveillance and stuff, because there's a book called 1984 that's all about this. And I'm like, well, that's deceptive marketing. And it's just like this entire movie, ironically, a movie about the most truthful person in DC, ends up being a bunch of lies.
Yeah.
That is ridiculously like, and it's like, and they even show that like, so she was just like hanging out when Steve died and she was like all mopey and lonely. I'm like, that's not Diana. So then you get to the problem with making her jaded. And here's the thing. This is all part of the character arc. So that's why that really never like affected me, because again, all these characters in Justice League come out of their shell. And it's like, even Diana, when she recruits a Cyborg, she goes, I lost someone I loved once and I shut myself off, but I'm trying to open myself up again.
Yeah, that works. That definitely works to an extent. With Diana, even though she's mourning, that's the thing. Diana mourns, but at the same time, she's not going to just like, it's not going to be over 60 years though.
It shouldn't take place over that long period. I do agree with you on that.
And again, the feeling of Diana being jaded, it more so again wanting her to align with Batman. And that was a thing that Gal actually said in the interview, was that she and Bruce connects because that's what it is. It's just them being jaded. And, she even reiterated that, saying about humanity and not having, this certain faith or walking away and stuff like that. It's like, no, that's not Wonder Woman. She doesn't walk away from anything. Her being jaded, even in Kingdom Come, she was jaded, but yet she never gave up. She was stripped of everything. She was seen as a failure to her sisters and her mother, but she still kept fighting. Yes, she did go a little bit overboard as the warrior, and we've talked about that. However, it's still the fact that she maintained, her fight, though, that fire within her. This Wonder Woman, she was jaded for someone she only knew for a week. That is my issue. And the fact that, again, they wanted to align her with another man, which is Batman, to fit his view. It's the same thing as
Even though
kind of,
they kind of said it, they were never going to end up together, though.
right. It's the same thing as how we view Frank Miller's verse as Batman, and we know that that's like an exaggeration
Hmm.
of his view because, Batman is a psycho, so he's going to be, and he's paranoid. But when you look at these characters and that's outside of Batman's view, and you specifically have this character as that way, again, to connect to Batman, no, that's just not how Wonder Woman is. She isn't a dark character. And Aruka, he did the same thing, saying how Diana has this certain darkness to her. No, she
And
does.
she
She
wants
never,
to rebel against her mother, so she's going to go after
yeah,
Bruce.
yeah, she's never done that. You know, that she's never rebelled against Hippolyta in that certain way, not for a man, not for her, even for her own self. It's not a rebellion. It's more so like she knows her purpose, or she knows that she has a certain purpose. And it's not to sit on the mascara. It's not to for her mother to be um a shield for her to be a helicopter mom in a sense. She knows that she has gifts and she wants to use them and learn from the world herself. That is not rebellion. That is basically just a curious child and being an adventurer. That's who Diana is. So the jaded part, it really had to align more so of like Kingdom Come than just Diana mourning over a dude. Like, no. And
Okay.
also Jaded to connect with Batman being jaded as well. It just seems
That's
very
why I
superficial.
ignore. That's one of the many reasons why I ignore Wonder Woman 1984. There you go.
Yeah.
So now, speaking of Jaded Wonder Woman, Britt, you're giving me such great transitions. The original Wonder Woman concept.
Okay.
The
So
wait. The rejected idea.
right, you have to, reiterate that. So with this, the reason why I added this was because, again, it was a compromise because I believe Patty said that WB actually wanted Diana to be kind of like the sexy lampshade, this warrior. They wanted her to be that femme fatale type character.
Hmm.
And Patty was like, no. So the
And
compromise,
then she would turn her into a man obsessed like woman that walks away from her duties.
did, that was pretty much the compromise. It was basically her being independent in a sense of fighting for the greater good in the first film,
Hmm.
but and being the warrior, However, yeah, the part of making it about Steve was pretty much what WB and essentially going to, Snyder's original plan rejected, but at the same time it still was a little bit implemented with her finding, first love or, Steve being part of her motivation. That was it. And it's just like, no, Diana is not that person. She is not this succubus goddess that will go after younger men. And then she breaks up when the man turns a certain age. She wants to be with a younger man to make herself feel younger, even though she's a goddess. Diana isn't the type to sleep around. She isn't
Where
like
was
that.
the sleeping around part? Because I don't remember Zach talking about that.
It I will go to find that article, the original article that kind of gives a little bit more detail. But yeah, she does. She goes like basically goes hop from man to man. That's until
Right.
she meets Steve.
Hmm.
Yeah, I will look for
I'm
that
wondering because I
article.
don't remember Zach talking about that.
Let me look that up while we're talking.
Yeah,
Um,
but it's like, see, here's the thing. Here's what you gotta understand about Zach. Yeah, he does a lot of these extreme versions of the characters because, and this is something he talked about in Joe Rogan. He's like, with the whole Batman killing, he goes, you don't put him in situations where he has to kill someone. And then Zach goes, well, when you tell me you not to do that, the first thing I want to do is do that to show you that it's like you could put these characters in any scenario and without breaking them. They're going to endure. And in fact, what's kind of funny is that Zach responded to someone that like said he like ruined Superman or something like that. And Zach goes, if these characters can be ruined by one interpretation, then they're not strong characters.
right. Well, I would
Like
say that
like
I
like
agree with
this
that.
way, Wonder Woman is going to exist after Tom King leaves the book. That it's not like that's going to be the last Wonder Woman book.
That's true. And I, the thing is with Diana though, it's kind of like she has, well, within the 90 years, basically that these characters have existed, and the many stories, we only hear so, like, it's a limited amount of the stories that even creators, fans and creators, reference.
Mm-hmm.
And with Superman, it's the usual. It's All-Star Superman, Kingdom Come, Death of Superman, unfortunately, uh, Burns, Man of Steel. Some of, honestly, not singles of Post Crisis, um, but basically the trial error. Then you have, well, the fans pretty much are rejecting pre-crisis, Golden Age Superman. So, but that still counts. Um, all 4 seasons. Um, I think Birthright. You know, those kind of that stand out for Superman. Then Batman, you have tons of stories. Batman fans will reference single issues. You know, but with Wonder,
And by the way, you are correct on that on that Wonder Woman thing.
yeah, yeah.
Which I'm like,
I'm sorry.
no, I'm like the fact that it was a scrap. I only care about ideas if they're actually implemented. If they're scrapped, I'm like, yeah. He's like, we didn't even have a screenplay. It was just something we talked about.
Yeah, as long as it's not something that
So it's not
you,
canon. If it's not on film, it's not canon.
right, as long as, yeah, it can be talked about. Like you said, we talk about stories all the time. And it's kind of like, should we do this? Should we not? If we're not typing it out and, things like that, then it basically doesn't exist anymore. But with this, again, it it was basically the catalyst though of the compromise for Wonder Woman, which ended up being we have to make Steve important. And honestly, that comes from WB, I feel, because we hear Whedon's, Wonder Woman movie was basically in the perspective of Steve.
Yeah,
So,
it probably is. They want to get because WB apparently has this faulty perspective that men won't see a Wonder Woman movie if it's just about Wonder Woman. And I'm like, most of the comic book audience is male, and
right,
Wonder Woman makes comics. So this is the problem. Is like it was like that one problem with that Tom King issue when he was talking about with the cancer kid saying, I'm a big fan of Wonder Woman. Is there something wrong with me? And I'm like, that may have been a problem when you were a kid, Tom, but that's not a problem now. Why is that happening in a modern Wonder Woman comic?
right.
That was a thing when you were a kid. That's not a thing now. I can happily go on this channel all live long day. Like this way, I have an entire show called Wonder Woman Wednesdays.
Right.
No, I've long said Wonder Woman's my number one favorite superhero. I don't get picked on because that's not a thing anymore. Or it's like this way, I went to go see Wonder Woman when it was in theaters, not because of Steve Trevor. I didn't even know who Steve Trevor was. I just wanted to see Wonder Woman because she was badass.
The thing is, no one is going to go see a movie Wonder Woman for Steve. No one reads Wonder Woman for
No one
Steve.
would. But what I'm saying is that's why I dispute the whole. Again, that's the studio people that I'm railing against, because I'm like, then why is it called a Steve Trevor movie? Because no one would see it. By the way, speaking of audios, do you know the script thing that they gave? Like, so a note that they gave in Man of Steel, a script note. Okay, you're gonna have a conniption when you hear this. This is the studio. Here's a note. So you know how Superman's ship, they use his ship as like a bomb to open up the Phantom Zone. This is the script note that a WB executive sent back to the writer of Man of Steel. I forget his name. It's Goyer. This is what Goyer got. Are you ready? The note was, you shouldn't destroy Superman's baby ship. How else is he supposed to get back to Krypton?
I remember that.
And you know what Goyer said? You literally saw it blow up in the first 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah. That was interesting.
This is the problem with the executives making creative decisions, because they're all stupid. And I'm like, it's like with this. It's like no one's going to... guys nowadays will see Wonder Woman for Wonder Woman. Case in point, well, the first Wonder Woman movie. No one cares about Steve Trevor, except for Tom King, inexplicably. But I get the parts that I don't like are the sleeping with and all that stuff. I get that, because that's Injustice Wonder Woman. But again, I ignore all that stuff because it's like, it's a rejected idea, and it was rejected for a reason. So I'm like, we can't make this movie.
Yeah.
It would be a cool Elseworlds like comic book, but no.
Right. And again, the whole plot still was that Diana's what she's supposed to have naturally, her compassion, her love, it was taken away, and then for a man, I would so much rather it be centered around her mother and sisters. Like, that's her fight. Instead of saying that Diana only has compassion and love because of Steve. Like, he's the one that taught her how to love. And that's the problem we even have with comics, is when they say, oh, Diana's humanity and Clark's humanity, Lois and Steve are their links, that they learn how to be human or whatever, or more human with them. No, Clark and Diana are already human, as human.
Diana was created by the Earth. Right. She's literally more of an Earth woman than Lois is.
I mean, Diana is pure human. If you go in the biblical sense, she is pure Earth human, and that is the one thing that these fans, creators, just can't wrap their mind around. They just see the superficial parts of, oh, Diana is, divine, and she's this goddess, but there's more to it. There's a spiritual whole, thing that they're missing from her. And Clark, the same way. The whole spiritual thing of being a Moses allegory. They just miss all of this so they can belittle their characters for Lois and Steve. And that's just something that it really holds the characters back.
Yeah. And that's the thing here. The problem with this is, like, Steve became too much while he was like to a degree, he was like the thing for Wonder Woman 1, but not to the degree that he was in 2. That's the problem, is that they turned Wonder Woman into a stereotypical like male obsessed woman. And in some ways, 1984 is worse than Snyder's original idea for Wonder Woman. Some ways. I'm not saying in all ways, but in some ways. And arguably, the thing is that I had someone in my comments, Britt, once say that the reason why DC doesn't emphasize Wonder Woman anymore, it was on one of my videos that Wonder Woman needs to be respected. They said because 1984 like tanked the character, and I'm like, no, it didn't. It not to the degree that people think it did.
Exactly. I don't like when people say that, because no, it didn't. Like, Superman had Superman 4.
It had 3 flops in a row. 3, 4 returns.
Right. So no. The only reason why DC and WB aren't emphasizing on Wonder Woman is because she's a woman. That's basically it.
Yeah, that's why. And then they emphasize the most problematic woman, Lois Lane. I'm sorry, I have to put in a Lois dig anytime I can. You know that. Now let's talk about the Greek gods as Kryptonian. Now, they didn't say all of them. It was mainly just Zeus and I think Ares, but yeah, it was only Zeus and Ares. So it wasn't going to be all the Greek gods.
I think that for this, they really wanted to connect. Again, you're trying to make connections, and it's like, don't make it complicated.
True.
Just go by the comics. And if you want to connect with Clark, he is essentially a sun god, so in his own right. So emphasize on that he is a new kind of god. I mean, you already had the false god type thing going on, that plot line, with in BVS. So emphasize more with that certain contrast with real gods, and how he is still on their level of some sort. And then Diana, actually being the daughter of Zeus, she is a demigoddess, and she sees Clark as, he might not be an actual god, or of divine blood, but his powers and whatever, Kryptonians, they are still on that same level.
Yeah, I mean, with the whole Kryptonians being gods, you also then have to explain why Zeus shoots lightning instead of like heat vision, and
yeah,
I'm like, okay, I get that. It's like one of those ideas where I think it's interesting. This is the idea I have less of a violent reaction to, because I'm like, well, that would make sense in a way, but I see why people don't necessarily want it. Now, then we get to what is quite possibly the most important movie in my life, Zack Snyder's Justice League. And Britt, to say it's a massive improvement over the theatrical, that is the understatement of the year right there.
It definitely is, because the theatrical, I don't know what that is. That was just something that, I don't know. It was a parody of itself. And this is the real movie. Now, for me, I would say that, like I say, my only kind of critique was the interactions. However, this movie really puts everything together. It, shows, it gives Superman his importance,
Yeah.
and really shows how the others are coming together. They're coming out. They are, with his indirect influence, they are inspiring them to, as they come out and come together as they should.
And it's like, and I have a good slide that summarizes their arc. It's like with Batman, where like Alfred, but I never asked you this. What did you think of Alfred and Bruce's interaction in BVS? I love where he goes, "Yes, Master Wayne, you're gonna survive, but not for lack of trying." I love sassy Alfred.
Yes, that was very much natural Bruce and Alfred. Like
Mhm.
that was straight out of the
A,
comics type
a
dynamic.
girl from Metropolis will make you honest, and I'm like, oh god damn, I love you.
That was, what was
Oh,
so funny
my
about
other favorite when he tracks uh KGB's cell phone to save Martha. Bruce goes, "I don't deserve you, Alfred," and then Alfred goes, "No, sir, you don't."
Yeah, I love that. That, like I said, really is comic accurate, you know.
Yeah,
And it gave that sense of the the father son type relationship that
yeah,
Bruce and Alfred should always have.
and,
Um,
yeah. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say the natural chemistry was
Yeah,
there.
and so for Batman in this movie, you see Batman's like strength, and it's like Alfred goes, so you're putting this team together just because, and Luthor's notes say that like the world's gonna end, and then Batman goes, "This has nothing to do with Lex. This has everything to do with him, meaning Superman." He goes, "I made a promise on his grave. I need to put us together to make things right," because like Bruce blames himself for Superman dying, and he's like, "I took away the world's protector. I need to make this right." And then later on, when they decide to resurrect Superman, with the box, Alfred goes, "Master Wayne, your guilt's overcoming your reason." It's like, what are you doing? And then Batman goes, "Alfred, for once in my life, I'm operating strictly on faith, not by reason." And I love this line where he goes, "How do you know your team's strong enough? When you're up against a charging bull, you don't wave the red cape at him." And then Bruce goes, "You do when it's this red cape, because this red cape charges back." And then when they go out to battle, Lex, after they revive Superman, Bruce goes, "He'll come, Alfred. I know he will." And then Alfred goes, "How can you be so sure?" Faith, Alfred. I just have faith. Compare that to the way it was in the beginning of Batman versus Superman, where you have a Batman that's super jaded, and it's like, if there's a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to kill him. In this Batman, he's more like, yeah, he's gonna come and he's gonna save us.
Yeah, that was good character development, and you see that um, that is something that you would see in the comics, and
Mhm.
that is pretty much why we would think that okay, they would definitely have a world's finest, the usual Batman, Superman, bestie type, dynamic going on. Um, and although we have that and we know that, it still came at the expense of every other relationship. Like we have certain points of okay, the Flash was inspired by Superman, and he talks about it,
Mhm.
and
He was my
how
hero.
and with calling back basically when Clark is resurrected and he sees how Barry was moving and the eye contact and how
I
scared
love
he
that
was.
eye contact. I'm so glad that was a Zach thing, because it's like when Barry's like, "Oh no."
And it's kind of like, okay, and if they were to meet up again, it's like, how about the post credit scene or whatever that was in the Whedon cut when they raced. Um,
If you can ignore Superman's CGI lip,
and well, I was gonna say redo that scene with the Zack Snyder effects, and that
or
would have
like,
been
or like, how about this? It's just, Clark goes up to Barry and says, "Oh man, you were really slow in that Heroes Park thing."
something like that. That really would have came full circle, and
Although
then with
I love where like the Flash is running at him, and then Superman just sidesteps and knocks him into Arthur, and then Arthur's pointing at him, and Barry goes, "I'm sorry."
it I mean, that,
It was good, and that's the thing is that the league started to feel like a family, and that's what Bruce was talking about when he goes, yeah, he's fought. Steppenwolf has probably fought 100 of us on thousands of worlds. He's never fought us united. I'm sorry,
right,
that is the Batman line right there. He's never fought us.
right, yeah, and again, we also see Diana. The thing I don't like, sometimes they want Diana to be the den mother, and it's kind of like she's taking care of a lot of grown man children that is kind of like, no, that is the one thing it didn't really do in this movie, gladly. However,
It was in the Whedon cut. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and but I just felt like she still needed a little bit more. Like
Well, it's
it,
like even in this, how about this? She's the one that goes to recruit Cyborg because she spent like a lot of time isolated from humanity. Cyborg did that, and she's the. If you notice, Wonder Woman is the one that inspires Cyborg to embrace his cyborgness and finally, like, this is who
yeah,
I am. I'm not broken. I'm not alone. That is majorly due to Wonder Woman's influence.
yeah, and then Barry's little crush, of course, he would have a crush on Diana, of course.
I love where they're digging up Superman, and then Barry goes, "You think she'd go for a younger guy?" And then Cyborg's like, "She's 5,000 years old, Barry. Every guy is a younger guy."
Right, and
I say what you want about her being old as dirt, but that's really good. I also liked when she's talking to Arthur, and Arthur's talking about I hate Atlanteans just as much as you Amazons did, because it's like the Atlanteans and the Amazons went to war, and then um Diana just says hate's useless. And I love where they both have that same line about you can't take one back from the darkness and not unless you give one back in return. And it's like kind of like that. We're not so different.
right, and Arthur being the drunk uncle.
I just love that. That is so. Or they kind of overplayed that a lot in the Whedon cut, and that's why I'm like, because in this it's like in this thing, yeah, he drinks, but that's only really for like one scene in the movie, and it's kind of interesting about Arthur. They set up his movie massively in this one when they're like, "Take up your mother's trident. King Orm is a real dick," and I'm like, "Oh wow!" So that's literally the Aquaman thing. But I also like that when after Victor's father died, which that was a massive change from the Whedon to the Snyder cut, because in the Whedon cut he survived. In the Snyder cut, what actually happened is that he superheated the cube because he knew his son was going to be able to stop Steppenwolf. So he's like, Steppenwolf is going to get the cube. I have to make it so you can find him. And that's what it's because he had faith in his son. And I'm like, oh, God damn it. This is just so good.
So much, yeah. There's so much character work within this movie that, yeah, the theatrical just it was nothing.
They made Cyborg basically a Humpty Dumpty or like a the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Whedon even wanted Cyborg to walk more like the Hunchback.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Gracious.
Compare that to Zack basically said Cyborg is the hardest. This is basically a Cyborg movie.
I really liked also
Yeah.
when he does the ATM thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, fun fact. So the Cyborg like backstory part, that was so Chris Terrio, who wrote this movie, he collaborated a lot with Ray, who played Cyborg, because he's like because he wanted to avoid the whole a white guy tried to write the black experience. So he's like, I'm gonna have you work with me so I understand this. So I can write this more true to your experience.
That's good. I mean that shows the care in the characters and you know the also the actors.
And that's the thing about Zack is like he's one of those directors that encourages a lot of like the actors to put a lot of themselves in the performance. Like the reason why Ezra runs the way he is that it's based on like speed skating. because he figured
That's right. Yeah.
that's kind of what the guy is running like. And I'm like, okay. And then Momo is the reason why Arthur had like tattoos, and it's actually kind of funny because Momoa originally auditioned to play Batman.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't see it playing Batman. I could see, because here's the thing with Aquaman, to a certain degree, it makes sense that he be played by like a guy that's like from that particular region. So I'm like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And he brought more of like a multiculturalism to like Aquaman, and I'm like, okay, that kind of works. It's because what Zack says is that he cast them as their secret identities first, like he cast Affleck as Bruce Wayne. So and then he's like, that way when you put the costume on, you believe that they're those characters.
Right. With honestly, all I saw was Momoa. I'm not even gonna lie. Like even with with both, even with the Aquaman movie,
Mm-hmm.
basically Momoa plays Momoa. Even with
Yeah,
being in
kind
the
of.
DC, even with being in the DCU, you know his logo is definitely gonna be Momoa.
It's gonna be
Like,
Momoa.
yeah,
Although I swear, when Lad and I were watching the Snyder Cut for the first time, the one part that we were like, "Please be in the movie," is when Cyborg catches him and he goes, "You're welcome," and then Aquaman just goes, "My
my
man," and then we're
man.
like,
Yeah,
"Yes,
yeah,
thank God that was in that movie." But my favorite joke from this movie is when Flash goes, "What are your superpowers again?" and then Batman goes, "I'm rich,"
yeah. That
or,
was
or
very much
like
a
there's another great line that I wanted to bring up is like when Flash goes, "I'm sorry, you have a satellite," and the Batman goes, "I have 6." I just love that. I'm like, yeah, because that is Batman's superpower, money. So, and then Superman's arc, and then this will transition us to our next slide, is the idea that like he's finally that symbol that like Jor-El wanted. Because if you notice, and again, the reason I picked this picture. Speaking of going full circle, when Jor-El says they will stumble, they will fall, but they will join you in the sun, and you will help them accomplish wonders. There's literally sunlight behind them. Like the sun is shining behind them at that moment. And I'm like,
yeah,
you SOB. You like, that's what I said a lot about Zach. Is like, he's one of those writers that he will set up stuff. And unlike Tom King, he'll address it. Like he'll actually fulfill character arcs because he's a good creative. Unlike, okay, you know what, screw it. Unlike Tom King. So we get to see. I understand like your point on like you could have seen like Superman interact more with the League. That was this movie's already 4 hours, but it's like I see you could have had like a little more. You did get some Batman Superman stuff where I love where where like they get the house back and Superman goes, "How'd you get the house back from the bank?" "Well, I bought the bank."
yeah. I mean, little small moments like that could have been just to give it a full, everyone is getting to know each other. We still have a distant Superman, even though he stood with everyone and, he fought with them and, defeated Stephen Wolf. It still felt like we needed them to actually talk to each other and really show that this is a team. Superman is with people that, you know, he's connected with, he belongs to them,
Mm-hmm.
or with them. And especially again with Diana, because that is comically, um, accurately his best friend. Why did we not see of BVS? She was there when he died. She was there, with that most important moment. So a full circle moment of her, even when she says he's back, in within the park scene, and then with the we should have seen her kind of say you're back, but in a sense of you're back to being yourself. And you are, as the woman of truth, And yes, going to the lasso too. It's like
Hmm.
you're back to being who you are supposed to be.
The symbol of truth, if you will, referencing that Alex Ross story. I see
Right.
what you're going for, and there could have been a lot more. Although I do like, by the way, in BVS when she shows up and then Batman and Superman goes, "She with you?" and then Batman's like, "I thought she was with you." I like to think that's Terrio going. Remember how people ship her with Batman and Superman?
That was definitely the joke.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that was like obvious, but it was obvious enough where I'm like, yeah, that's great. And so for the lasso part, it did kind of snap him out of it because we noticed she has him the lasso, and then he reacts. So it started to undo that, to undo like confusion he was going under.
Yes, it did, but it felt like it was still not enough because, of course, you had to shoehorn in Lois to,
Mm.
really snap him out and be
Well,
his.
it wasn't just Lois, because to quote Zach, is that Lois was pregnant.
Yeah, but we really didn't have that emphasized too much in the movie.
She opened
So,
the drawer and saw a pregnancy test box.
yeah, 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 I know that. I'm saying that at first,
Oh, okay.
it will go kind of like out of sight, out of mind, and kind of like
Hmm.
one ear out the other type thing.
Hmm.
So that's what I'm saying is that yes, it was that, but at the same time, still, I don't care. Lois should not be in that scene at all. Like
I get it. I get it.
this is a moment to show Wonder Woman's power. Like you are undercutting Wonder Woman in a sense. And it's not even about shipping or anything like that. It's basically her power and the lasso of truth. Like that, he shouldn't have been able to snap out of her, um, getting basically getting the truth out. And especially when she calls him Cal, I can't stand the fact that people think that she is not supposed to call him Cal.
I know it's really, really stupid, and I'm like, they always have like the worst arguments, like, oh, she's downplaying it, she's ignoring his human heritage. Nah, that there's a very specific reason for that. It's because like he is Kal El. He's wearing the House of
Ex-
El, so.
That's what I'm saying is that
Mhm.
that undercuts that when she is wielding the lasso of truth,
Mhm.
and then she calls him Cal, and and even if she, calls him Clark, it's still the fact that Cal is his truth. But what people take from that scene is that Cal isn't his truth, but it is him just being, first of all, only caring for Lois, and then calling him just Clark. That is what I don't like about that part.
I
So
see.
if yeah, so if you want to really show Diana and her power, the influence on with the lasso of truth, and that full power, the connection that Diana has with Clark Cal, and why she calls him Cal is because that is the truth that she knows of him because of the lasso of truth. If
Exactly.
she is the embodiment, she is the spirit of truth. She wouldn't go around calling him Cal. She doesn't just do that for no reason. She does that out of honor and because that is his actual truth. And I think that again, the movie, both versions, undercuts that. And we have where again, people online is like, why does she call him that? He doesn't like it, or he doesn't respond to it because of that scene, you know. And they make fun of it. And it's like, no, that's not comic, accurate. It's the total opposite within in the comics.
I see. So then you get to, yeah, and I get it is like my issue with the DCU is that it ended before we could even see Superman like hang out with the League, or like Superman and Wonder Woman particularly really have a conversation, because besides the Heroes Parks, besides BVS and the Heroes Park scene, and then when he shows up in a badass way with the axe on the shoulder and he goes, I'm not impressed. You really don't see that much interaction between Superman and Wonder Woman. And I'm like, that's something.
Right. And what was funny, when they were promoting BVS, and Amy Adams, she was asked about Diana and, well, Superman and Wonder Woman. And it was funny because it was a kid that asked, and she basically said that, like, no, he likes Lois. It was a very strange answer that she had to give. A very, like, Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship was an elephant in the room, and especially because of coming from New 52, that was being promoted as well. So it felt like at this time they were just trying to undercut or undermine their relationship because of the New 52. So it's like within the movies, and especially when you have even Jeff Johns kind of working within it too, it's like that's what they wanted to do, was to keep pushing for the classic traditional pairings, so Clark and Diana can't interact naturally as they should and as we expect them to.
Well,
Um,
remember, Britt, where did Jeff Johns get his start? Working with Richard Donner.
True. And then we get another missed opportunity, which was in the Flash film, was at the end where Clark and Diana are supposed to walk up to Barry and I guess allude to you know interacting with Sasha Calle's Supergirl. So yeah, very much missed opportunities with Clark and Diana. Like I said, from the first movie, he should have been the one to interview her, and she telling her whole memoir to him. Um, uh, BVS, he could have interviewed her at the gala. Um, then here again, the Lasso scene, Lois taken out of that, and an ending part of her saying that, you're back, or something like that, to emphasize on the part that she's saying that he's, back to being the hero that he's supposed to be. Then in the Flash film, uh, where they are just Clark and Diana walking up to Barry, congratulating him on his father's release. Then also with The Rock and how he wanted to do kind of like an adaptation of Kingdom Come, or that it was going to be Black Adam versus Superman, and how they pretty much said that, well, Superman can't fight Black Adam alone, so of course he was going to have Wonder Woman as his partner. And he really didn't emphasize on Shazam, so it's definitely going to be
Because
basically.
here's the problem with that. The Rock, whenever that they brought up, hey, can The Rock show up in the Shazam movie? They're like, The Rock reportedly didn't want to fight any of the like B-listers. Then I'm like, then why are you playing Black Adam?
I think because he saw that Black Adam was kind of like still fighting Superman though. Like he thinks of Black
Yeah.
Adam. At the same time, Black Adam was, it seemed like in the early, like, 2000s, post crisis, that Black Adam was a popular character at that time. So I think that The Rock is pretty much basing it on that time that Black Adam really, started to gain popularity, then. And yeah, fighting Superman and Wonder Woman, that would, boost Black Adam.
To a degree, I see what you're saying there. So then we get to the Knighmare timeline, and I get, yeah, in the minute I say this, and I'm like, oh yeah, Britt's not gonna like the Lois part of this.
Yeah, no, that is a
Because
no
it
go
does
for
get
me.
too much to the injustice like Superman thing.
Yes. Now, yes, the anti-life equation, um, that is something that, I mean, Superman gets possessed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it works. It is there. However, again, the catalyst and what makes him weak and what makes him is still, and especially the whole "you took her from me" in the Nightmare,
Mm-hmm.
that scene, or or even I saw when Martha tells Clark to make his world small,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go back and he says to Lois that you are my world. It's kind of like he literally took that in a sense, or maybe it was just close fans taking that, but it was still the fact that he really did make his world small to the point of it's only Lois. And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, no, please stop doing that. Because we do end up with a nightmare, quote unquote, timeline of
Where
injustice.
Tom King writes Wonder Woman.
Or, yeah, or Tom King writing
That
Wonder
is the
Woman.
nightmare. That's the real nightmare timeline right there.
Right. So I just, no, I don't agree with this unless, again, if it was just Superman being possessed by the anti-life equation,
Because that has happened before. I mean, he's been
yeah,
possessed by Trigon as well. So it's like
yeah,
it's not like it's
then,
that really there.
or even Cersei has, uh,
Yes, Superman, Wonder Woman, or even in Wonder Woman 175.
right, something like that. But and even Wonder Woman 175 is a basically um, what should have been the source for the Lasso scene as well. Um, and then even for this, for Superman to be possessed, Diane,
And you just gave me an idea.
of course, um, Lois should not be the catalyst, or she shouldn't be the center of Superman's world or his emotional, you know, stability or instability. It, just no. And then Batman, it takes away the whole idea of this verse was that Superman is the hero. He is the one that brings everyone out to be, um, who they are supposed to be, be free, and join him in the sun. But for him, for it to end, Superman ends up turning evil. So basically, Batman was right about that 1%. And then he, at the end, when Lois is pregnant, yes, this was changed before they started filming. However, Zach did still implement that. He's like, yeah, I still want to do it, but it was still changed that the kid would be Clark's, but the kid still becomes Batman. Like, even if he doesn't, um, it's not Batman's, but the kid is powerless and still becomes Batman. That changes the story from a Superman, um, you know, whole arc to now Batman is the ultimate hero. And that's
Understood.
something I'm still kind of like, no. It really just takes away from everything that this whole thing has been building up to, and it's a slap in the face to Superman.
I can see. All right. And then yeah, we have the downfall. It's like, well, it all the more shows the problem with Lois. It's like if we're like the way it's written, because if you have like this one character, if she falls, he turns into evil. What does that say about Superman's like mental state? If you lose this one person, you snap into an evil. I love Grant Morrison when they were talking about this, about the problem with injustice, and he goes, yeah, if you lose someone close to you, you're not going to turn into an evil dictator.
Right. And that was also the 5G uh plan, was
Mm-hmm.
for Clark to become a dictator, and it was alluded that Lois died. So basically, Clark becomes a dictator, and John becomes Superman, and he has to fight Clark. Now, evil Clark, and it's like, no, stop doing that.
It's one of those things, but Then we also have Wonder Woman's nightmare, where she's the god of war and she kills Superman.
I actually think that this is a very good concept
Mm-hmm.
because first we got um, this bit in the Finch's run
Mm-hmm.
when Diana was fearful of, the mantle taking over her mental state and her emotional state. And she was having nightmares of it. And her greatest fear was that, she would cause destruction. And how you can connect that with Clark is it's the same way that he actually have experienced that, not of the nightmare timeline, but because people have judged him in that sense to think that he would be the one to cause destruction and bring destruction to the world. So if they were to have that type of discussion together, it's like I'm having literal nightmares that I have taken this mantle on to,
Another
I'm
idea.
supposed to I'm supposed to, be this pretty much this goddess of truth and goddess of peace, but I've taken on being the goddess of war, and I don't know how to keep myself from, you know, being swallowed up by it. And then Clark, he feels, well, all my life people have judged me for the power that I hold, and they think that I came here to, you know, bring destruction, especially with what happened with Zod, thinking that I'm supposed to be the next Zod, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And that would bring them together because it's like and it would be an interesting idea. It's like because that's the other thing about Superman and Wonder Woman. They've always struggled with like the perceptions of the way the world sees them, and Charles Sewell really dug into this in Volume One. So that would be a fun little callback to that storyline. This is the idea that I thought Britt was going to have the most issues with, but it turns out she's like, if executed properly, I think it could be a good idea. And I'm like, oh wow,
Yeah, and also it can be a movie in itself
Mhm.
or a comic, storyline, because again, it's a psychological um exploration and a mental and emotional exploration for Diana mostly. And because we have seen this in what Charles did and what the Finches did. So it's basically just extending on what they tried to do.
Exactly. So now to conclude our discussion of the Snyderverse, this is going to get a little personal, but screw it. So this is what I'm going to say. May of 2020, I'm getting out of the dentist's office and I'm going through Facebook and I happen to see that poster of Wonder Woman, except above it is like that scene from Jurassic Park where like Jeff Goldblum's character goes, that son of a bitch did it. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I scroll down and see that poster and it says HBO Max. And I'm like, what? So, because I didn't think that this movie was ever going to come out. So, literally, I get home and I face because I wanted to form a podcast a long time ago, but it's like I couldn't figure out what to do it on. Then this happens, and then to say, so I FaceTime Lad and we talk about it, and then I'm like, we could do this. Then I started reading my old graphic novels for the first time, and for some reason, this is when it hit me, and this is when it hit me like a sack of hammers that I love this stuff, and it's I cannot emphasize this enough that it's because of this movie that I rediscovered my love of comics, my love of superheroes, and like all the friends I have because of this channel, all the listeners I have is because of this movie. And just think about that. One movie actually, when people say a movie changed their life, this movie literally changed my life.
Aww.
And then I have some things here. This is a personal experience of people that watch the Snyder Cut. So the bottom comment. when I watched the Snyder cut, I was the most depressed I've ever been in my life. I was considering ending my life every moment that day. When Flash ran back in time and said, "Make your own future, make your own past, it's all right now," that saved me. And the music changed everything for my mood that day. Snyder couldn't save his daughter, but he saved a life with his version of Justice League.
And honestly, that's really what is all about. It doesn't matter, and we talk about this all the time, that people are going to have different opinions. Um, they are also going to have different preferences and perspectives of certain things. But when you can have that positive impact on at least one person, that really means so much more than the naysayers, you
Exactly.
know.
And like Zach said on the Joe Rogan podcast, the reason why he won't accept when people call his fan base toxic is because he's like, yeah, but they also raise like over $1 million for suicide prevention. There are people alive today that would not be alive without the resources that money bought.
Right. And I mean, that is what matters. Life, and being able to meet people that has, things in common with that you can talk to, how we've met, through all of this. It that again, it means more than, all the back and forth of fans and, the chaos that we see every day on Twitter of Gunn fans versus Snyder fans. Um, no, the most important thing is whatever message you get out of the film. And for that to be a life changer, a life savior, something like that. Again, that is what's important.
And before I move to the next slide, I'm just going to say this is an open message to Zack Snyder himself. You're probably never going to see this, but screw it. I'll put it out there. Because this is an open thank you to Zack Snyder, because if you hadn't come back to finish Justice League, none of this exists. The friendships I've gotten because of this, the rediscovery of my love for these characters, it's all because of that decision to come back and finish this movie. And this is thank you for the friendships that this has brought. Thank you for helping me to rediscover, to like believe in superheroes again. And just thank you for releasing a movie that literally changed my life. And that is just thank you so much.
I'm gonna get a cat gif, Jerry.
I'm sure. So, so this was weird. So we get this news that, so first we get Gunn posting a picture with Zack in the DCU storytellers, like writer's room. And then we get like, there's an announcement going to be on Monday, which I think there still is going to be an announcement, even though the Superman event was like just a Superman event, but I'm pretty sure there's still going to be an announcement. And if he takes the picture with Zack, with the timing tells me this could be something with Zack where it could be ending completing the SnyderVerse with animation, or even doing it with Kingdom Come, because I've long said what you could do to conclude the story, tell Kingdom Come, and Kingdom Come goes normal, the normal Kingdom Come route up until the end when the superheroes are fighting. That's when Darkseid invades, and then we get the world becomes a Justice League Lord of the Rings style battle. Like Darkseid is what unites the heroes again against them, against Darkseid. Just you can harken back to that first history lesson battle scene when the armies of Man, Atlantis, the gods, Green Lanterns, and the Amazons all came together to fight Darkseid. Or it could be a Dark Knight Returns adaptation. Zack has been clear that he would love to adapt Dark Knight Returns. So there's any number of things this could be. Or it could be just Gunn was there, and Zack was there for like the 300 series that he's doing it, and he just wanted to say hi to James Gunn. It's entirely possible. It's the timing of this that I'm like, something is going on.
Right. As far as what's going to be announced on Monday, okay, so unless it's like a very out of nowhere surprise, you know, honestly, the article that's supposed to come out is nothing more than just kind of, letting it be known that the Batman is still in Elseworlds, and he's basically still reiterating about Superman, and um nothing really new. So again,
Hmm.
unless it's a
Well,
surprise, they are keeping hush
well,
hush.
hang on. That was talking about the press event, but it's not necessarily meaning like the big announcement that they supposedly have for Monday.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That, you know, it has to be something like, the reason why they called the press is for Monday. So it's kind of like,
Okay, I see.
yeah, yeah. So it's like, unless they kept it hush hush and just kind of like psyching fans out because they knew it would leak through the weekend, that's the only thing. So I would say lower expectations.
Well, yeah, that was always my thing because I'm like, until they actually announce it, I'm not gonna go like, oh my gosh, it's gonna happen because I've been burned by that many times with this company.
Also, we saw that, how some of those Twitter sources were basically blaming Grace for hyping them up, and it's kind of like, no, you hyped yourself up. Um, with Zach meeting Gunn, it yeah, it could go a multitude of ways. The Kingdom Come adaptation, I would say that is, I wouldn't say, I would say that James Gunn wants to do that himself.
Hmm.
Um, because you see, corn sweat with the symbol, it's
Hmm.
just yellow. So I would say that, but at the same time, you know, I mean, for it to be in the Superman box set, it doesn't really make sense for it to even be, the story has nothing to do with it. If you're looking at the aesthetic, that still doesn't make sense because the symbol is yellow, and it just doesn't um, fit into anything. So it has to be something down the line type thing. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, so I think that that is something that Gunn would want to do. I really hope not, though, because I just don't want it to be cheapened, you know, as a
And
story.
we know if Gunn does it, it's gonna be cheapened.
Right.
But
Um,
now, what do you think about the other two options?
okay, so with DKR, definitely. Like,
Hmm.
that is Snyder, because he wants to do a one-on-one, one-to-one um adaptation, and I could see Snyder doing the entirety of the Millerverse, and especially I would say do it in animation, because live action, that would take, a lot of dedication, a lot more time, and it feels like you have to find that right actors. I know we have the DCEU actors, but they are in different places, in their career. So I don't know if they would, even for Zach, I don't know if they would come back like that. So it would be better to have voice actors to, kind of be able
Well, here's the
to.
thing, though. If you did do like an animated continuation of the Snyderverse, you could just bring back the original cast and just have them voice it because that would take like an afternoon.
Exactly, that's what I mean. It's kind
Mhm.
of like, that is much better than trying to have them, prepare physically, if they're not prepared, if they're not actually in that space
If they're
of.
not available because a lot of these actors are like higher profile, like have a lot of work too.
Right. And then we also have uh have the budget.
Hmm.
DC WB, they are very much on a limited budget too. So live action Snyder is, even though he can do his own um effects and everything like that, it's still the fact that money has to be put into it, and that is something that they don't have. So, like I
Well,
said,
yeah.
animation is very much their better option, but DKR adaptation, the whole verse is definitely something that's I feel that will be high on you know, Snyder doing. Um the SnyderVerse again, it would have to be if the original cast is available to do so. I would definitely put DKR first, then completing the SnyderVerse and um, Kingdom Come as a very distant last place.
I would say that. I still say that I'm gonna kind of go with this. I'm gonna go with DKR last, and then go with Snyderverse or Kingdom Come because yeah, it might be something that Gunn want to do, but that's like 10 years down the line, and it's like I I see what you're saying about Gunn wanting to do it, but it's like here's the thing. Here's why it would actually be advantageous for them to do Kingdom Come. You don't have to worry about people complaining that like these Snyderverse actors are older
That's true.
because that's what the universe is. But I don't know. We'll certainly see. I hope there's something on Monday. And by the way, this is releasing on Monday, so we probably already know that. So let's hope that I get proven right. But speaking of, oh my god, this is this issue. I couldn't even give a good transition. By the way, so I love this. It's mostly negative, and I love this Instagram comment. I love Steve, but the fact that you make it a Steve glorification comic is a problem. And then someone says, yeah, Diana's still the daughter of Zeus. You can't just say she's like a clay origin. That's why I'm like, he didn't read anything. And then you literally have this weird ass character hit Diana with the American flag. And then Diana glorifies the American flag. And then this is the part that really got me, Britt. The Wonder Girls are babysitting Trinity while she does this. And I'm like, you mean this is how it could have been the entire time? And you had other characters fight the Sovereign?
Not only that, okay, so let's go down bullet by bullet because so first of all, the character is a JLI character. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw on
Red
a couple
flag.
of tweets. So yeah, I saw on a couple of tweets how it's kind of like King has it in for JLI characters. Like he hates them or something. So
Yeah,
yeah,
Guy Gardner, Booster Gold. Yeah.
yeah. So Superman, as an immigrant, you are more offended by a building that was built by slave labor than Amazon's, your best friend family, being killed, being imprisoned, and being trafficked.
Well, beyond that, Britt, he talks about how like it took just the days and they did it slowly, brick by brick, and I'm like,
I feel like
mm,
with that, I feel like that was very much a jab in a sense, or very condescending in a way of talking about who actually did build the monument.
mm-hmm.
Because it literally did take them, obviously, brick by brick and days to do so. And it's kind of like, no, that is not a good comparison, or whatever the hell you were trying to say. No, you know, it the way Tom King tries to write this, he tries to write this in a poetic, waxing type way, and it's you're full of sugar honey iced tea.
He's
Like,
trying to be philosophical.
yeah, and it's awful. It's just no. So yeah, this is very post crisis, early post crisis Superman, for him to be offended because of a building when they crush and tear up buildings and roads and anything else, when fighting, and there was never a problem. The, Justice League, we've seen in issues or even in the animated films how they would help, clean up certain things,
Mm-hmm.
destruction and rubble or, things like that. So for Superman to have a problem, this is very much King going overboard with the whole patriotism type thing. Um,
Speaking of patriotism,
so with Sovereign monologue and telling Trinity this long, drawn out, just waste of time of a story. It, again, we talked about this of how it's supposed to be 20 years within the future, telling a past story, and it all supposed to connect together. Whatever, I just let it go,
mm-hmm.
because this has not been an impactful story in a positive way. It really, everything that has happened, a bunch of nothing really. It shouldn't have taken 19 issues to get to all of this. It just
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't. You really screwed over. This could have been honestly one issue. But yeah, you drawing this out was just awful. Um, and then the flag. The flag representing Steve, we first saw her when she was clutching it. She stole it, then clutched the flag, and instead of something very personal to him, she took flag, which doesn't really make sense.
And she let the flag hit the ground. You never do that. That's flag code.
So
And Britt,
why did she
again,
say?
by the way, Britt, here's how you know Tom King screwed up. Again, I'm someone that is pretty patriotic for America. And even I was like, this is stupid.
The thing is, he let Diana cry in a dirty cave with the flag on the ground, but then in this issue, she says, "I won't let the flag hit the ground."
What if that's in response to some of the criticism he got from that BS issue?
Honestly, I feel like a lot of Tom King's, I feel like a lot of later issues are going to be that. So don't be surprised if we do see Etta at some point, and it's kind of like, no, and he says this has always been the plan. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't.
Mm-mm.
It's just reaction.
You just saw that like everyone was so happy that it was an absolute Wonder Woman, and you freaked out.
Right. And going back to Steve as the flag. So in one of the um, panels, well, as Diana was spewing about how great the country is, she says how she got the name Wonder Woman from, like, people just started calling her that. She doesn't know why. And honestly, that is a slap in the face to Perez, because the Wonder Woman name, her being who she is as a representative of the mascara. Like, how does he not know this basic
Because he
thing?
didn't read the books. That's what I'm telling you.
It's it's so just, I mean, it's a lot of things. And the fact that she says that I came to this good country with my Steven, it's kind of like, you didn't come to the country whatever for him or with him in that certain sense of, like, you are with him out of love. You know, you came here because you had a mission. I don't understand why Tom King again. Well, I understand why, because he watched 1984 and thought that's
Oh yeah.
all Wonder Woman was. But the fact that you really keep, pushing this idea that Diana's motivation and who she is comes from Steve is just, it's ridiculous. And the fact that she says with my Steven while standing next to the flag, yes, it emphasizes more that the flag represents Steve. And I saw a comment on, I think it was one of the review pages, of how Diana is representing the country and calling it good and everything like that because it's what Steve believed in. And it's what he, like, that's what he represents. And like, no, that's basically um, blind loyalty, because Steve, honestly, he is not a good person. You know, he,
Particularly not in this run.
as he's very selfish, very manipulative, guilt trips Diana, um,
Gaslights.
gaslights her, um, being in the military. First of all, and I've said this, with the political climate that we have, and you know, and just how the world is right now, and the many horror
Oh,
stories within within the military, you can't glorify that, you know, without addressing the issues. And it just feels like King does not want to actually address the horrors of the country and of the military. He just wants to make it seem like Steve is the hero. And that's the only reason why Diana is the hero she is. Then we have where, first of all, Steve, he only wears his military uniform. And even with the statue that she made of him, it's not her showing him as someone that she loved and saw him for him. She sees him as just a soldier. So you're glorifying that soldier type thing. And also in issue 13, where she calls him the man of army. But why are you glorifying the military and the army when the same military that Steve is associated with, again, has tortured, has imprisoned, murdered, and trafficked your sisters? That was your main priority. And that has totally been sidelined for Steve.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's and that is the common issue that I identify, because, by the way, yeah, comicbook.com did a whole article that's talking about why Tom King's Wonder Woman is the weakest Dawn of DC book, and I'm like, hey, guess what? That is one of the reasons that she's like a side character in her own book in favor of Steve, because we know that, like, Tom King only really cares about Steve Trevor, and I'm like, then write a Steve Trevor book. But anyway, but it's like, then we get to, so Cheetah's gonna fight Grail, and
Grail.
I'm like, Grail should body Cheetah. She's the daughter
Yeah,
of Darkseid.
yeah, that should be very much a, like, one slap type thing. Very much, you know, she should, you know, even if Tom King with his weird humor should have had Grill with like a water sprayer or something, and you know, spray Cheetah, have Grill spray Cheetah.
Yeah, I know. With
You
the
know,
Yeah, that would have been hilarious. That's Cheetah's secret weakness the whole time.
yeah, something like that. I mean, for that to just be 1 to 2 pages, that was really underwhelming. And then for the Wonder Girls to just be out of nowhere, be with Trinity. Like, there's no type of emotional development with that. There's not, Diana didn't introduce them to her. She didn't, you know, have this moment where it's kind of like, especially with even Donna, her sister, is like, this is my daughter, Trinity. No, instead, um, King has Donna say, this is Diana's most precious treasure, and she already lost a family member. Of a family member? Like,
Eh? Eh?
like I'm sure it was hundreds, you know, from the Amazons, but again, he's only emphasizing Steve, and Diana's treasure is now just Trinity. Like, we still don't have any type of emotional connection to her as a mother. How is this or Trinity now her precious treasure. You know, that is what's ticking me off about this um run, is because all of the developments and the character interactions and stuff like that, and that is something as a writer, like, you have to have, and something that I look to, and that helps even influence my own writing. But then when I see that comic creators are just gliding by and glossing over developments because they feel like, oh, these characters have been, around for 90 plus years. So, it's just whatever. Like, it's been this way. I don't have to do much work. No, because you will lose investment. And that's what this is. Trinity, no one can invest in a character. Just because you call her Diana's daughter doesn't mean she is Diana's daughter in the eyes of the fan, because you didn't work for that. You didn't truly establish that in a meaningful way. So even with trying to care for Steve, they weren't together. So why should we care that all of a sudden Diana is supposedly in love with
Because
Steve?
King didn't read the Wonder Woman
Right.
comics.
So yeah, like I said, it's ticking me off because you just randomly have the Wonder Girls with this Chucky baby, and to make a poop joke, you know.
Hmm.
Y-
Again, King is either infantile or unable to write Wonder Woman. Well, both are
And
kind of true.
right. And then we go to and it's true, every action is off screen. It's only said that either by Diana saying that Batman did this, Superman did this, Flash did this, or it's the Sovereign saying what happened, but we don't see it to truly feel the impact of it. And even when he writes the dialogue for Diana, she is so stiff and she talks, it's like he tries to give her an accent or to make her,
Because he's trying to make her Gal Gadot.
and trying to make, yeah, and essentially trying to make her like still the foreign type woman, and it's like, that is such an insult. Like, no, you do not,
You know what I just
don't try.
realized?
Hmm.
When she calls him Man of Army, you know what? It doesn't work. Steve is a Marine in this run.
Well, he changes ranks every
He changes
5.
branches every. In Rebirth, he was a Navy SEAL.
Yeah. And but even Man of Army doesn't make sense because, first of all, you were trying to piggyback off of Clark being the Man of Steel, and then Man of Army doesn't sound right because you are glorifying the army.
And
Like,
then it's because he called her Woman of Wonder, and I'm like, yeah,
but
but
I'm
still, but
right,
it's because Steve again. They keep trying to give Steve all this stuff to make him look important, but he's not. Remember, that was the same issue where like he was literally saving her like a damsel in distress, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
go back to punching her in the face. Why don't you? Jeez.
yeah, it's awful. Um, so now we are being a nationalistic mouthpiece,
Hmm.
and again, it's all because she's with Steve, and Tom King is doing his self-insertion, and she is supposed to love this country only because of Steve. So it's a good country because of Steve. It's a great symbol of the flag because of Steve. And that is just, it's not Diana. She is a global hero. Yes, she is American made. She is in America, but at the same time, Diana is very much a cultural influencer, globally. And we really need to get away from that. Even with Superman, we really need to get away from the whole rah rah America thing. We dealt with that in Rebirth with Superman, and how, he did the same thing in the issues where they traveled across America, and he basically was saying how, you need to know the American history instead of knowing about pop culture. And it basically felt like Tomasi was copy and pasting from Wikipedia, or something like
I
that.
wouldn't be surprised.
And also just the whole thing about honoring soldiers and stuff like that. It's like at some point, again, if you are going to talk about American history, talk about the horrors too. Talk about the bad things too, and and the flaws. You don't need to, and it just it's such an insult to other people, and it just you know to glorify it without, like I said, without saying of his flaws, and also the fact that he also compares George Washington to Diana in a sense, and it's kind of like, no, that doesn't work either. Like you are really being very immature, and it really does sound like you got all your information um from like the elementary, history books that glorify, history and make it
Hmm.
seem so childish.
Hmm.
That is pretty much what Tomasi and King has displayed with how to put Clark and Diana in these sort of situations.
Hmm. Yeah, and then you get to the Batman team up arc.
Now, I thought that that was a, a one shot, like the Superman
Hmm.
one shot, and yeah, I'm peeved at that too because first of all, if you want to do a deep dive of their friendship, no, he did not do anything like that. He definitely did a toenail, pinky toenail, in a drop of it's not even a capful anymore, Jared. It's basically a drop of water.
Hmm.
And that and what he also did was he centered it around Batman and being of the Trinity. And it's kind of like that's not fair because
In the tie-in, didn't he also have Wonder Woman refer to Batman as a god?
yes. So not only do you have um you know, trying to give this gift for Batman and make it about the Trinity instead of talking about Clark and Diana's relationship as friends, even if you don't want to talk about their past relationship or have that romantic tension that they are supposed to naturally have, if you are just to go with their friendship, Batman is not involved. You don't have Wonder Woman involved in when talking about the world's finest, and
Or even in Superman stories.
right. Um, well, that's basically Superman's best friend right now in the current book is just Batman. They only refer to Batman as, his best friend. But in Wonder Woman's book, it's always been Clark, but it just feels like it's an imbalance. And we've talked about this, that the only reason why there's an imbalance is because if you were to talk about Diana in Superman's book and how she's his best friend as a woman, that will overshadow Lois. And in the Batman books, Wonder Woman is not mentioned at all. She isn't important. If you want that whole light hero to Batman's darkness and stuff like that, that's Superman. If you want to talk about Superman's friends and, I mean, Batman friend with superpowers is going to be Superman. Um, so yeah, so with this arc, it doesn't make sense. First of all, because you unalived Ares, which as the god of war, it's kind of like, okay, who could kill the god of war unless he's like an old man? And how like with the plot of New 52 of Diana taking the mantle and how basically old man Ares sacrificed himself. But if this is the like young, vibrant Ares, how did he die? Like no.
Well, we're
That
gonna find that out because only Batman can solve that murder.
well, according to the latest solicit,
Yeah,
he's gonna
it
be
looks like it looks like Batman gets sidelined, and I'm like,
he
then
should
why
have
you
been
bring him in at
side.
all?
First of all, he should have been sidelined in the first place because this is Wonder Woman's book. So
Yeah, he shouldn't have been. Or here's the idea: bring in Cassie, because I read Trial of the Amazons, and Cassie was the detective.
and I mean, even if you are to bring in just anyone, I mean, even a god, another god, they can solve their
Athena,
own.
or,
Yeah,
or wait, how about this? Wonder Woman has the wisdom of Athena.
no, she doesn't. Not with King.
Well, yeah,
She's
but I'm just saying, there's no reason for Batman to be in this.
no. It's only because King wants to. As I think I told you this before the show. Yeah, I did. That I feel like what King is trying to do is he already said that he's challenging, Perez in his
Hmm.
delusional mind. I feel like a lot of things that Tom King has changed for Wonder Woman, such as Steve being a love interest and Diana being obsessed with him, is because Steve was still a very important character to Diana, but he wasn't her motivation. And
Hmm.
he was more of a big brother figure to her in Perez run. Then in the Perez run, you had Clark being Diana's, best friend and her support. And now it feels like he's trying to put Batman in that position as the friend, as the support, even though he really isn't, but it just feels like a lot of it just feels like um King is referencing Batman a lot more. So it's kind of like he's definitely trying to do the opposite. And honestly, the reception is the opposite because your King's run is, going downhill while Perez run will still remain as the golden standard.
Yeah, it's no. This run is going to be the one that's like forgotten. I
Yeah.
guarantee you. This is going to be one of those runs that people are going to like. Wait, Tom King wrote Wonder Woman, and then we'd be like, yes, we forgot as well. That's why I can't wait for them to end this, and he's not getting like 100 issues. If it does that, I am going to write a tweet and tag him, even though he blocked me. I'm still going to tag him. I'm going to say, but I thought you were getting 100 issues.
Right. And
Uh, uh,
also the
so wait, in terms of you wanting to get 100 issues for Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, you're 0 for 0. I mean, you're 0 for 3.
Yeah, because no one refers to his Batman run, even with Batcat.
Well,
And,
he doesn't count Batcat as like part of that.
I mean, no, I'm saying with the fact that
Hmm.
his Batman run was only about Batcat.
Hmm.
I mean, he really ruined that relationship
Hmm.
for a lot of people because having Batman suicidal, no,
Hmm.
and then the fact of causing Alfred, to be killed by Bane and stuff like that, it just and he was vacationing with Selena. That just didn't make sense.
Hmm. The whole thing doesn't make sense. And then we get like, well, when I heard he wants to use Mouse Man, I'm like, at least you're actually using a Batman villain.
Wonder Woman villain.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, a Wonder Woman villain. I'm tired. It's a Wonder Woman villain. At least you're using a Wonder Woman villain.
Yeah, it's a Wonder Woman villain, but at the same time, it's kind of like, who cares about Mouse Man? Like, who
Yeah,
even knows about Mouse Man? And I mean, he wants to do these obscure type things, but we don't care.
that's not gonna be a pull for people. If you want a pull, Wonder Woman versus Cersei, that can do something.
Well, I mean, Cersei got Basically,
That's true. Cheetah, Dr. Psycho. The problem is all those villains being like the female
henchman.
dogs of Sovereign, that kind of makes them all weak. You can't even do Grail.
Exactly. That is the
Thanks a
problem.
lot, D-bag.
Yeah, that is definitely the problem with seeing how they were so easily, to become the lackeys and yeah, the female dogs of Sovereign. Someone that honestly, Grail, she would not.
There's no way she would be like the lackey of a human. No.
Right. So King,
If she
yeah,
did, Darkseid would disown her.
yeah,
And think about it this way: this is the man that was writing a New Gods movie.
it would have had unfunny jokes. It would have
It would have
ruined.
you would have had you've seen Scott Free attempt to off himself.
Yeah, awful. Just,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Ares was the one that offed himself in,
Watch that. That's the real reveal. That's what they'll do. He'll cheese it.
or I wouldn't be surprised if King tries to compare Batman and Ares.
That is just dumb as hell.
Yeah.
But I can't wait for this run to be over, and then I can just discount and say, oh yeah, there was no run after 800. It just took a little bit of a break. But I think that's a good place to leave it. But so Britt, what was your favorite SnyderVerse movie? I want to ask you this.
My favorite has to be Man of Steel.
Okay, that's a good one. I like that one.
Honestly, okay, so I would rank them Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, um, Zack, Snyder Cut, and then BVS.
Okay.
And
I love how Wonder Woman 1984 is not even on that list. You're like,
it's
nope,
not even,
nope, nope.
no, it's
Doesn't
never on the
exist.
list. One other thing,
Mhm.
also with the King's Run,
Yeah, go ahead.
Daniel St. Pierre. We
Oh,
tried to give him a little bit of a pass, as the artist. However, today, when someone asked him about the Wonder Woman having
teaming up with
more.
females, and then he goes, "Well, she's been teaming up with the Wonder Girls," and we're like, "You know what we
The
mean."
fact that he deleted that comment and then, it was like, first of all, you knew you was being, condescending
Unprofessional.
and unprofessional and and
Here's the thing,
gaslighting.
Britt. A lot of these creatives are entitled, and they think that like they're owed money, and they're
Money.
not. They're
Right.
not.
So and then the fact that when he
And
was
now it makes me all the more glad I dropped the book, because before, and I came back to reading it, it was to support Sampere's art. I'm not doing that.
and when he was challenged, two points. When he was challenged, he also tried to throw King under the bus and saying how like he's just an artist, so he doesn't know,
If you hate
certain
it, it's
things.
all King. It's not me.
Okay,
I love
first of
that.
all, if he doesn't know anything, how does he not? How does he like not know anything when he's the one that designs like the way Trinity looks, the way certain characters look, and he was also the one that um gave the suggestion for issue 4. Artists and writers collaborate with each other. They are to say yay or nay, or what to draw, what's better
Unless
fitting and
King
stuff
is
like that.
lying, because that is a good excuse. That is a viable option. That it turns out King was lying the whole time when he talked about the influence of Sampere.
No, because even Saint Pierre said he agreed in an interview.
Mm.
And also even in issue 8, when Diana was having those uh when she was talking to Steve in her mental state and she ate the rat, um, the 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 settings, King said that it was all Saint Pierre, like his choices. So,
Hmm.
and Saint Pierre agreed to that as well. He said that he chose certain specific places. So it's kind of like, yeah, you're both. First of all, if Saint Pierre feels like he's being challenged and, you know, he's getting the same exact type of pushback that King is getting, he wants to throw King under the bus and act like, oh, I'm just the artist. I don't know anything. You're lying. And King, if it's something, well, first of all, he's just going to block people because
Hmm.
he can't take constructive criticism.
Hmm.
And uh, apparently, Saint Pierre can't take constructive criticism either. And that is something that, if you know, Wonder Woman is a very unique, in a sense, complicated character, and she has a certain niche of fans. Um, yeah, I don't think you want to piss them off. I don't think you want
Yeah.
to,
Or don't write the book if you don't think you can handle that responsibility.
and also the fact that King straight up said that he didn't want to write her in the first place, and you are pushing these plots that obviously the fan base is not agreeing with on her, instead of blocking
And
people.
obviously, your fans are not enough to make the book a success because it keeps going down.
Yes. So I would say that if, any Wonder Woman fans that are listening, keep, not buying the book. Don't support it.
Boycott it and blast out the King of Wonder Woman hashtag because a lot of big accounts have been hopping on the bandwagon, started by SuperWonder fans. Isn't that funny how that works out? It's almost
Right.
like it doesn't matter what type of fans you are. If you see an injustice and you stand up to it, there you go. That kind of works.
Exactly.
So now I think that's a good place to leave it. So, Britt, do you have any stories you want to promote for us?
Okay. So I have completed a one shot that I will be sending on the way for an exclusive
Yay.
read through. Um, and chapter 3 has been uploaded and has had a lot of positive feedback, so I'm proud of that for ShelterVerse. Now on to other one shots, of course, that will be on its way. But the story that I'm really ready um, for us to share is the Olympia story. We have a
Yes.
title. I'm so proud that we have a title
Yeah,
for
because when Britt said, "Do we ever get a title?" I'm like, "Oh, we never got a title."
in chapter 1, we have a chapter 1 title, and it is 95% done. As I told you before we started, it's 50% flashbacks and 50 present day, and it really just puts everything together. And the main part that it really tells us how, even though Clark and Diana are going through this painful, journey, they still love each other and they're still trying to hold on. And also the influence, I can't wait for Jared to listen to really gain that perspective that I have of it.
Yes, I will
And
finally be listening to a Beyonce song.
yes, you will love it. You will love it. And I can't wait to get my cat gifs because, like I said, I'm very proud of this first
You
chapter,
still owe
and
me one.
I know. And yeah, I would say that it's very much Special Bonds 2.0, a little bit more
Yeah, yeah, you're gonna be getting cat gifts from me for sure.
yeah, it's a little bit more dramatic, and because of the plot that we are, you know, going with that, with Special Bonds, Clark and Diana were, you know, just together.
Hmm.
And but when you add in children and them kind of like spiritually married in a sense, it's like that is something deeper. And also what they lost, you know. So yeah, I can't wait to finish this chapter and to share it because again, I'm very proud of it and the emotional toll I want to bring, to us all really with this first chapter.
And it's going to be a fun one. So stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane, and Steve Trevor, Steve Never. She belongs to General Zod. He belongs 6 feet in the ground. Actually, really 30 feet in the ground. Make it completely impossible for him to crawl his way back up like the roach he is. Zois and Maxivat for life. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.